There is a quiet room, bathed in the soft, golden light of a late afternoon. The sun, low in the sky, sends a single shaft of light through the window, illuminating a slow, silent dance of dust motes in the air. The only sound is the low, almost imperceptible hum of a distant refrigerator, a sound so constant it has become a part of the silence itself. In a worn armchair, a figure sits, perfectly still. The television is off. A book lies closed on a nearby table. The world outside, with its endless traffic and urgent sirens, rushes on. But in here, time itself seems to hold its breath. This quiet, this profound stillness might look like loneliness. It might feel like the end of a story. But what if it is not an emptiness to be filled, but a space to be explored? What if it is an invitation? We live in an age of profound contradiction. We are more connected than ever before through a web of invisible signals and glowing screens. Yet we often feel a deep and aching solitude. We are surrounded by an abundance of things, comforts, and entertainments, a relentless pursuit of more, yet we carry within us a persistent feeling of lack, a quiet sense that something essential is missing. The noise of the world has a powerful echo, a counterpart that lives inside our own minds. It is the unceasing chatter of anxieties, the constant replay of past regrets, the forward-leaning worry for a future that has not yet arrived. It is a subtle, pervasive exhaustion, a weariness of the soul. We run from one distraction to the next, hoping to outpace this inner restlessness, only to find it waiting for us in the quiet moments, in the stillness of a late afternoon room. But there is an ancient path, a timeless wisdom that offers a different way. It does not promise to silence the world outside, but rather to quiet the noise within. It does not ask for blind faith or adherence to dogma, but instead, it offers a set of practical tools, a science of the mind, a gentle method of looking inward with honesty and compassion. It suggests that the peace we so desperately seek is not a destination to be reached or a prize to be won. It is, instead, our most natural state, a deep well of tranquility that is always present, hidden just beneath the turbulent surface of our thoughts and emotions. This journey, over the next 3 hours, is an invitation to rediscover that well. It is a chance to learn the art of simply being, to explore the landscape of your own mind, and to find a profound and unshakable rest in peaceful, healing mindfulness. The journey begins now, not by going anywhere, but by settling right where you are. To begin this journey, we must start with an act of profound honesty. We must be willing to look directly, without turning away, at a fundamental quality of our experience. In the ancient language of this path, the word for this quality is dukkha. This word is often translated into English as suffering, but that single word is too heavy, too laden with images of immense tragedy and despair. While dukkha certainly includes great pain and loss, its meaning is far more subtle, more pervasive, and more intimately familiar to every single one of us. Think of it less as a gaping wound and more as a constant, low-grade fever of the mind. It is a subtle friction, a background hum of dissatisfaction, the feeling that things are just slightly out of alignment. It is the human condition seen with clear eyes. To acknowledge dukkha is not to be pessimistic or morbid. It is to be realistic. It is the first essential step toward a genuine and lasting peace, because we cannot heal an ailment that we refuse to diagnose. So let us, with gentle courage, explore this truth together. The first and most obvious form of dukkha is what we might call the suffering of pain. This is dukkha. It is the sharp, undeniable pain of a body that gets sick, grows old, and endures injury. It's the throbbing of a headache after a long, stressful day, the chronic ache in a joint that speaks of passing years, the sudden, searing pain of a stubbed toe. It is the raw, physical reality of inhabiting a biological form that is, by its very nature, vulnerable. But this pain is not only physical, it is also the keen suffering of the heart and mind. It is the hollow ache of grief when we lose someone we love. It is the sting of betrayal, the flush of shame from a harsh word, the cold knot of anxiety that forms in our stomach before a difficult confrontation. It is the loneliness that can visit us, even in a crowded room, the despair that can cloud our vision of the future. This form of dukkha needs little explanation because we all know it. It is an unavoidable part of the texture of life. We are born, and our first act is to cry. We live in a world of constant interaction, and our sensitive hearts are inevitably bruised. No amount of wealth, power, or success can build a fortress that is immune to this fundamental truth. But the path of wisdom invites us to look deeper, to a more subtle and insidious form of dissatisfaction. This is called viparinama dukkha, the suffering of change. This is a paradox, because it arises not from painful experiences, but from pleasant ones. Have you ever been in a moment of pure, simple happiness? Perhaps watching a spectacular sunset, its colors bleeding across the sky, or sharing a moment of deep, heartfelt laughter with a dear friend, or feeling the thrill of achieving a long-sought-after goal. These moments are beautiful, they are precious. But if we are truly honest, we can often detect a tiny, quiet whisper in the back of the mind. The whisper says, "This won't last." The very pleasure of the moment is tinged with the subtle anxiety of its own impermanence. The more beautiful the sunset, the more poignant its inevitable fading into darkness. The more joyful the gathering, the more we feel the quiet sadness of its eventual end. We cling to these pleasant moments. We try to grasp them, to hold on to them, but they are like water slipping through our fingers. This clinging, this resistance to the natural flow of life, where everything arises and passes away, is a profound source of dukkha. Our modern world is built almost entirely on the promise of pleasant experiences. We are encouraged to chase the next promotion, the next relationship, the next vacation, the next purchase, believing that it will finally bring us lasting satisfaction, but it never does. The new car becomes just the car. The excitement of the raise gives way to the pressure of the new job. The pleasure is fleeting, and we are left once again with a familiar sense of lack, setting off on the chase once more. This endless cycle, this hedonic treadmill, is the suffering of change. We suffer not because pleasant things end, but because we desperately wish they wouldn't. Now, we must go even deeper, to the most subtle and fundamental layer of all. This is sankhara dukkha, the suffering of conditioned existence. This is the background noise. It is the general, pervasive unsatisfactoriness of being a self that is constantly in flux, cobbled together from fleeting thoughts, feelings, perceptions, and impulses. It is the vague underlying tension that comes from living a life on autopilot, driven by habits and reactions we don't fully understand. Imagine a wheel that is not perfectly round. The journey can still be made, but it will always be slightly bumpy, always require a little extra effort, always feel just a little bit off. That is sankhara dukkha. It is the reason we feel a need to constantly do something, to check our phones, to turn on the television, to busy our minds. We are uncomfortable in the stillness because when things are quiet, we can begin to feel this fundamental unease. It is that feeling of something's not quite right, even when, on the surface, everything is fine. It is not an acute pain, nor the disappointment of a pleasure ending. It is the simple, existential friction of being a conditioned, dependent, and impermanent being in a conditioned, dependent, and impermanent world. It is the exhaustion of upholding a sense of a solid, separate self, a self that needs constant defending, defining, and gratifying. This is the deepest, most pervasive dukkha, and it is the root from which the other forms of suffering are ultimately fed. To understand how we can work with this, there is a simple, powerful story. It is said that a wise person knows how to avoid the second arrow. The first arrow is the event itself. It is the painful diagnosis from a doctor, the unexpected loss of a job, the harsh criticism from another person. First arrows are a part of life. They fly at us from the world, and we cannot always dodge them. To be alive is to be vulnerable to first arrows. But the second arrow is the one we shoot at ourselves. The first arrow is the pain. The second arrow is the suffering. The first arrow strikes, and then our mind reacts. Why did this happen to me? This is a catastrophe. I can't bear it. It's unfair. My life is ruined. This narrative, this story of judgment, resistance, fear, and anger, this is the second arrow. It pierces us far more deeply and causes far more lasting damage than the first. The initial pain might be 10 units, but our reaction to it can add 100 units more. The path of wisdom, then, is not about building an armor so thick that no first arrows can ever touch us. That is impossible. The path is about developing the mindfulness and the clarity to see the first arrow for what it is, an unpleasant but temporary sensation. And in seeing it clearly, we create a space in which we can choose not to pick up the bow and not to fire that second devastating arrow into our own hearts. To look at our lives in this way, to acknowledge the reality of dukkha in its three forms, is a radical act of self-compassion. It is not self-pity. It is not negativity. It is the clear-eyed recognition that the stress, the anxiety, and the dissatisfaction we feel are not a sign that there is something uniquely wrong with us. It is a sign that we are human. It is a shared condition, and in naming it and seeing it clearly, we have taken the first, most crucial step. We have stopped running from the truth. We have turned around to face it. An accurate diagnosis is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of the cure. Now that we have had the courage to look at the symptom, we can begin our investigation into its cause. Where does this river of unease truly come from? Having looked with gentle honesty at the condition of dukkha, that pervasive underlying current of dissatisfaction in our lives, we are no longer in the dark. We have made a diagnosis. A wise physician, however, does not stop there. The next crucial step is to understand the cause, the origin of the ailment. The wisdom of this ancient path offers a second profound truth, one that is both startling and deeply empowering. It tells us that the source of our restlessness is not outside of us. It is not the fault of the world, our circumstances, our history, or other people. The source, the very wellspring of our anxiety and discontent, arises from within our own minds. This is the truth of samudaya, the origin of suffering. At first, this might seem like a heavy burden to bear, but a moment's reflection reveals it as the most hopeful news imaginable. For if the cause of our suffering were external, we would be forever its victim, powerless to change the world around us. But if the cause is internal, if it is a process happening within our own hearts and minds, then the key to our own freedom is already in our hands. The ancient texts, give this cause a simple, powerful name, tanha. This word translates as thirst or craving. It is not a gentle wish or a mild preference. It is a deep, primal, driving thirst. It is the engine that propels the wheel of suffering, keeping us in a perpetual state of seeking, grasping, and wanting. To understand its power, imagine a person lost in a vast desert, their throat parched, their mind consumed by a single desperate need for water. In their delirium, they stumble upon the great ocean. Seeing the endless expanse of liquid, they believe they have found their salvation. They cup their hands, and they drink the salt water greedily. For a fleeting instant, the coolness of the water on their tongue feels like relief. But immediately after, the salt begins its work, drawing even more moisture from their body, creating a thirst that is 100 times more raging and agonizing than before. In their confusion, believing that the only cure for thirst is more water, they drink again and again, driving themselves deeper into a cycle of torment. This is a perfect metaphor for tanha. We feel an inner emptiness, an existential thirst, and we seek to quench it with the salt water of worldly experience. Every sip, every temporary satisfaction only deepens the underlying thirst, ensuring that we will remain forever dissatisfied. This thirst manifests in three primary ways. The first and most familiar is kama tanha, the craving for sense pleasures. This is the thirst for things that delight our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body. It is the engine of our modern consumer society. It is the relentless scroll through images on a screen, seeking the next beautiful picture, the next amusing video. It is the desire for the taste of a gourmet meal, the feel of luxurious fabric against the skin, the sound of our favorite music, the scent of an expensive perfume. There is, of course, nothing inherently wrong with enjoying the pleasant sensations the world has to offer. A beautiful sunset is still beautiful. The problem lies not in the experience, but in the craving, the attachment, the deep-seated belief that these fleeting sensations hold the key to our lasting happiness. We develop a dependency on them. When we feel bored, we seek entertainment. When we feel sad, we seek a comforting food. When we feel insecure, we seek a new purchase. We use sensory experience as a drug to numb the background hum of dukkha. But like any drug, its effects are temporary, and a tolerance is built. The pleasure we get from the first bite is always the strongest. The novelty of the new phone quickly fades, and once the brief pleasure subsides, the underlying thirst returns, often stronger than before, now demanding a new and better object to satisfy it. We become trapped in a restless, exhausting loop of wanting, getting, and wanting again, never arriving at a place of true, abiding contentment. Deeper still is the second form of thirst, bhava tanha, the craving to become, the craving for existence. This is far more subtle and powerful than the simple desire for sensory pleasure. This is the thirst for identity. It is the deep, driving need to be someone, to have a solid, stable, and admirable self. It is the ambition that whispers, if I can just get that promotion, then I will be successful. It is the longing that says, if I can just find the perfect partner, then I will be complete. It is the desire to be seen as intelligent, as attractive, as kind, as a good person, as someone who matters. We construct an identity for ourselves, a story made of our accomplishments, our relationships, our beliefs, and our possessions, and we cling to this story with all our might. We are constantly curating it, defending it, and promoting it to the world. This craving to become is what keeps us striving, perpetually living in a future where an idealized version of ourselves finally exists, a version where we are finally secure and happy. But because the world is in constant flux, our identities are built on shifting sands. A promotion can be lost, a reputation can be tarnished, youth fades, and relationships change. Because we have tied our sense of well-being to this constructed, impermanent self, we live in a constant state of low-grade anxiety, terrified of anything that might threaten our story, our existence. This is the craving to be, a thirst for a permanence that life, in its very nature, can never offer. The third form of this thirst is the mirror image of the second. It is vibhava tanha, the craving for non-existence, where the craving to become grasps and pulls things toward us. This craving pushes them away. It is the desperate desire for something to not be. This is the energy of aversion, irritation, anger, and hatred. When we experience something unpleasant, a painful memory, a difficult emotion like fear or shame, a person who irritates us, a situation that is not to our liking, this thirst arises with great force. It wants to annihilate the unpleasant experience. It declares, I don't want this. Get it away from me. We spend so much of our mental energy at war with reality, fighting against what is already here. We try to push away our sadness, to suppress our anxiety, to argue with our circumstances. This battle is exhausting, and it is a battle we can never win. The more we push against a feeling, the more power we give it. The more we hate a situation, the more it occupies our mind. This craving for non-existence, this desire to escape the present moment, is a direct, potent source of suffering. It is the refusal to accept life on its own terms, and this refusal is a constant, self-inflicted torment. So we have this unquenchable thirst, this tanha, that manifests as a grasping for pleasure, a clinging to identity, and a pushing away of pain. But we must ask, why? Why are we so thirsty? The deepest answer the Buddha gave points to a single root cause, avijja. This word is translated as ignorance, but it does not mean a lack of intelligence or education. It is a fundamental spiritual ignorance. It is a profound misperception of reality. We are thirsty because we are lost in the desert. And we are lost because we are not seeing the landscape for what it truly is. We mistake the impermanent for the permanent. We mistake what is ultimately unsatisfying for something that can bring us lasting happiness. And most profoundly, we mistake what is not self for a self. This deep foundational ignorance is what gives rise to the thirst, and the thirst is what gives rise to our suffering. We are drinking salt water because we don't realize it's salt water. We are clinging to smoke, believing it to be solid. To see this clearly is not a cause for blame or shame. It is the moment the person in the desert realizes the nature of the ocean. It is a moment of awakening. The cause of our suffering is not a flaw in our character, but a misunderstanding in our mind. It is a mechanism, a process of craving born from ignorance. And the most beautiful truth of all is that any process can be understood and any mechanism can be dismantled. We are not doomed to be thirsty forever. The very fact that we can identify the cause means we can, with diligence and wisdom, remove it. It points directly to the possibility of a different way of being, a state where the thirst has been quenched, not with more salt water, but from a cool, clear spring that arises from within. This possibility, this shore of silence, is where our journey now turns. We have walked together into the heart of our own restlessness. We have looked at the condition, the pervasive dissatisfaction called dukkha, and we have looked at its cause, the insatiable inner thirst called tanha, a craving born from a fundamental misunderstanding of reality. To stop here would be to leave us with a diagnosis and a cause, a clear picture of our ailment, but with no hope for a cure. It would be a journey into despair. But this ancient path is not a path of despair. It is a path of profound, realistic, and radical hope. For there is a third noble truth, a truth that changes everything. It is the truth of Nirodha, a word that means cessation. It is the definitive, unambiguous statement that the thirst can be quenched, the fever can break, the fires of suffering can be extinguished. There is an end to the inner war. This is not a guess, a theory, or a matter of blind faith. It is presented as a discoverable reality, a state of being that is accessible to us. The name for this state of cessation, this ultimate peace, is nibbana, or as it is more commonly known in the West, nirvana. The word itself has been absorbed into our culture, but its meaning has been distorted. We imagine it as a kind of blissful, otherworldly paradise, a reward waiting for us after death. Or perhaps we see it as a state of detached, emotionless bliss, a complete disconnection from the world. We must gently set these ideas aside, for they obscure the profound and practical truth of what nirvana truly is. It is not a place you go to. It is a quality of mind you uncover. It is not in the future. Its potential exists in this very moment. The literal meaning of nibbana is to extinguish, or to blow out, as one would blow out a candle flame. This is perhaps the most important metaphor we have. What is it that is being extinguished? It is the three fires that fuel all of our suffering: the fire of greed, craving, and endless wanting, the fire of hatred, aversion, and anger, and the fire of delusion, confusion, and ignorance. These are the fires that are fueled by our thirst, tanha. As long as we keep feeding them with our attachment and our resistance, they will continue to burn, consuming our peace and our energy. Nirodha, the cessation, is what happens when the fuel is withdrawn. When we stop feeding the fires, they simply, naturally, go out. And what is left when the fires are gone? The mind in its natural state, peaceful, luminous, and free. It is crucial to understand what this state is not. The idea of extinguishing can sound terrifying to a mind that is identified with its own thoughts and dramas. It can sound like annihilation, like the end of the self. But what is extinguished is not you. What is extinguished is the illusion of a separate, needy, and defensive self, the egoic consciousness that is the source of all the trouble. The personality, the memories, the skills, the capacity for love and laughter, these things do not disappear. Life continues, but it is no longer experienced through the distorted, narrow filter of the ego. The constant, anxious project of me and mine is put down, and the relief is immeasurable. Nor is nirvana a state of blank nothingness or empty apathy. It is true that a central related concept is emptiness, or sunyata, but this too is misunderstood. It does not mean a vacant void. It means the mind is empty of greed, hatred, and delusion. The heart is empty of the burden of the self. This emptiness is not a lack, but a boundless potential. It is a spaciousness that allows for a deep and authentic connection with all of life. A person who has touched this freedom is not emotionless. They still feel joy at the sight of a child's smile. They still feel sorrow when confronted with the pain of another. They feel these things perhaps more purely than we do, because their feelings are not instantly contaminated by the story of me. They don't cling to the joy, trying to make it last forever, and they don't compound the sorrow with the second arrow of resistance and self-pity. Their heart is open, responsive, and deeply compassionate, precisely because it is no longer trapped in its own small prison. To speak of nirvana is to speak of something that is ultimately beyond words and concepts, for it is a direct experience. But we can use analogies to hint at its flavor. Imagine you have been living your entire life with a low-grade fever and a constant dull headache. You have become so used to it that you think this is simply what it means to be alive. Then one day, you are given a medicine, and for the first time, the fever breaks and the headache vanishes. The experience is not just one of not being sick. It is a state of profound and vibrant well-being, a lightness, a clarity, an immense gratitude for the simple, beautiful reality of health. This is a taste of nirvana. It is perfect mental health. Or imagine a person born and raised in a small, windowless prison cell. The walls are all they have ever known. Then one day, a door they never knew existed swings open, and they step outside for the first time. Their freedom is not merely the absence of the walls. It is the breathtaking reality of the open sky, the vast horizon, the ability to walk in any direction without constraint. This is a taste of nirvana. It is the ultimate freedom of the mind, released from the self-imposed prison of its own conditioning, its compulsive thoughts, and its reactive patterns. Perhaps the most powerful analogy is that of waking from a dream. While you are in a dream, especially an anxious one, it feels completely real. You are running, you are being chased, your heart is pounding, your fear is absolute. Then, in an instant, you wake up. You are safe in your bed. The morning light is streaming in. With a flood of relief, you realize that the entire drama was nothing more than a fabrication of the mind. It had no substance. It was not real. Nirvana is like that. It is waking up from the long, collective, and often anxious dream of the separate self and seeing reality for the first time as it truly is in all its luminous, interconnected, and peaceful nature. And the beauty of this path is that we don't have to wait for some final, ultimate awakening. We can have small awakenings, tiny glimpses of this freedom every single day. Every time we choose not to react in anger, every time we let go of a petty resentment, every time we are fully present with our breath for even a few moments, we are stepping out of the dream. We are tasting freedom. This third noble truth is the promise that illuminates the entire path. It affirms that our suffering is not a life sentence. Freedom is possible. This was the discovery of the Buddha, a human being just like us, who woke up under a tree and realized that the cause of suffering could be uprooted and that this freedom was the true nature of all beings. He saw that he was not special, but simply awake, and he spent the rest of his life teaching others how they too could wake up. This is the great, hopeful, and empowering message. We are not fundamentally flawed. We are simply asleep. Now that we know where we are, why we are here, and that a state of profound peace and freedom is possible, a final, practical question arises. If there is a farther shore of silence, how do we cross the turbulent waters of our own mind to get there? What is the boat? What is the map? This leads us to the fourth and final noble truth, the path itself. We have arrived at a place of profound hope. We have seen that the unease of our lives, dukkha, has a discernible cause, tanha, and most wonderfully, that there is a possibility of its complete cessation, nirodha. A natural and urgent question arises in the heart of anyone who hears this news. How? If freedom is possible, what must I do to realize it? If there is a farther shore of peace, how do I build the raft to get there? The answer to this question is the fourth noble truth. It is the culmination of the Buddha's discovery, the practical, detailed, and life-altering instruction manual for the journey from suffering to freedom. It is called the Noble Eightfold Path, or in Pali, Arya Atatangika Magga. This is not a set of divine commandments handed down from on high. It is a path discovered and walked by a human being, and it is offered to us as a systematic guide for our own self-transformation, a pragmatic approach to the art of living wisely and well. Before we explore the 8 parts of this path, we must first understand its spirit. It is known as the middle way. This principle arose directly from the Buddha's own life experience. He was born a prince, Siddhartha Gautama, and for the first part of his life, he was shielded from all hardship and surrounded by every imaginable sensory pleasure. He had the finest clothes, the most delicious foods, beautiful palaces, and constant entertainment. He lived at one extreme, the path of hedonism and self-indulgence. Yet, he found that no amount of pleasure could touch the deep underlying feeling of dissatisfaction. He saw that chasing pleasure was an endless and ultimately empty pursuit. So, he left his palace and embarked on a spiritual quest, and in his search, he swung to the opposite extreme. He became an ascetic, practicing severe self-mortification. He starved his body until his ribs showed like a picket fence. He held his breath until he felt excruciating pain. He slept on beds of thorns, believing that by punishing the body, he could liberate the spirit. But this path of extreme self-denial also failed. It brought him to the brink of death, but no closer to enlightenment. It only weakened his body and clouded his mind. Then came the moment of profound insight. Sitting, emaciated and exhausted, he recalled a teaching he had overheard. A musician was instructing his student on how to tune a lute. If you tighten the string too much, the teacher said, it will snap. If you leave the string too loose, it will not make a sound. Only the string that is tuned just right, not too tight and not too loose, will produce beautiful, harmonious music. In that moment, Siddhartha understood. The path to awakening was not a battle to be won through force, either by indulging the senses or by destroying them. It was an art to be cultivated through balance, skillfulness, and wisdom. It was the middle way. The Noble Eightfold Path is the very embodiment of this middle way. It is the practical guide to tuning the magnificent, complex instrument of our own body, heart, and mind, so that it might play the music of peace. The path consists of 8 interwoven factors. They are right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. It is important to understand what is meant here by the word right. The Pali word, samma, does not mean correct in a rigid, moralistic sense, as opposed to wrong. A better translation would be wise, skillful, wholesome, or even complete. These are 8 skillful ways of living, and seeing that, when cultivated together, lead to harmony and freedom. It is also crucial to see that these are not 8 sequential steps, like rungs on a ladder. You do not perfect right view before you begin to practice right speech. Rather, they are like the individual strands of a thick, strong rope. Each strand supports and strengthens all the others. They are to be developed simultaneously, each one informing and enhancing the rest. A clearer view of reality naturally inspires a wiser intention. A wiser intention purifies our speech. Wholesome speech makes right action easier. Living an ethical life makes it possible to quiet the mind through meditation. And a quiet, concentrated mind is the very instrument that allows us to see with even greater clarity, deepening our right view and starting the beautiful upward spiral of awakening. To make this holistic path easier to grasp, it is traditionally organized into a 3-fold training. The first training is in sila, which means ethical conduct. This group includes three of the path factors: right speech, right action, and right livelihood. This is the foundation of our engagement with the world. It is about learning to live and act in ways that are harmless and beneficial, both for ourselves and for others. The purpose of ethics in this path is not to earn favor with a deity or to accumulate good karma for a future reward. Its purpose is profoundly psychological and practical. When we live a life of honesty, integrity, and kindness, we create a life that is free from the inner poisons of guilt, remorse, and fear. It is very difficult to find inner peace if our outer life is a source of conflict and distress. Ethical conduct creates a stable, peaceful, and solid platform upon which we can build our inner work. It is the act of preparing the soil before we plant the seeds of meditation. The second training is in samadhi, which means mental discipline or concentration. This group also includes three factors: right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. If sila is about how we act in the world, samadhi is about how we work with our own mind. This is the heart of meditative practice. It is the direct training of attention and awareness. Our minds, left to their own devices, are often like a wild, untamed monkey jumping restlessly from one thought to another, agitated and distracted. This training is the gentle, patient process of taming this monkey mind. It is about developing the inner strength to steady our awareness, to calm the ceaseless chatter, and to bring a focused clarity to our experience. It is through this mental discipline that we transform our mind from a chaotic and tyrannical master into a calm, clear, and powerful servant. The third training is in panya, which means wisdom. This group includes the remaining two factors: right view and right intention. Wisdom is the pinnacle of the path, the very quality that cuts through the root of suffering, while ethical conduct provides the stable ground and mental discipline sharpens the tool of the mind. It is wisdom that does the liberating work. It is the direct seeing into the nature of reality. It is the experiential understanding of impermanence, dissatisfaction, and not self. Wisdom is not simply intellectual knowledge. It is a profound shift in perspective that arises from a clear and steady mind. And as wisdom dawns, it shines its light back on the rest of the path, naturally purifying our intentions, our actions, and our concentration, creating that beautiful, self-reinforcing spiral towards freedom. This, then, is the map, a complete, holistic, and practical guide for human flourishing that addresses every aspect of our lives: our conduct in the world, the cultivation of our inner world, and the development of a liberating understanding. It is a path of practice, not a system of belief. It is an invitation to begin an active, conscious engagement with our own lives. It does not demand that we become someone else. It invites us to discover who we truly are beneath all the layers of conditioning and confusion. And so, our journey together now shifts from the what and the why to the how. We will begin to walk this ancient path, exploring each of these 8 beautiful strands. And like any great journey, the first step is to have a clear sense of direction, to understand the landscape. We begin, therefore, with the foundation of all wisdom, the very faculty of seeing itself, right view. We begin our walk on the noble eightfold path, and we start with wisdom. For without wisdom, our efforts can be misguided, our good deeds can be misapplied, and our meditation can lead us astray. The first step on the path of wisdom, the very foundation of the entire journey, is right view. Imagine you wish to travel to a distant, beautiful city. You are full of energy and determination, but if the map you hold is inaccurate, if it shows mountains where there are valleys and rivers where there are deserts, then all your effort will be for naught. You may walk for years with great sincerity, but you will only wander deeper into the wilderness. Right view is the accurate map for our inner journey. The Pali term, samaditehi, means more than just a correct opinion. It implies a complete and skillful perspective, a way of seeing that is in harmony with reality itself. It is the process of cleaning the lens of our perception, wiping away the smudges of our inherited biases, our conditioned fears, and the deep-seated distortions of greed, hatred, and ignorance, so that we may begin to see things not as we wish they were or fear they are, but simply as they are. To understand the problem of our ordinary, unexamined view, consider the ancient parable of the blind men and the elephant. A king once brought a magnificent elephant into his courtyard and assembled a group of men who had been blind from birth. He asked them, one by one, to approach the great animal, to touch it, and to describe what it is. The first man reached out, and his hands fell upon the elephant's broad, tough side. "Your Majesty," he declared, "an elephant is very much like a sturdy wall." The second man grasped one of the elephant's sharp tusks. "No," he said, "an elephant is not a wall. It is smooth, hard, and pointed like a plowshare." The third man happened to take hold of the trunk. As it writhed in his grasp, he exclaimed, "You are both wrong. An elephant is clearly like a thick, powerful snake." Another took hold of a leg and insisted it was like the pillar of a temple. Another felt the ear and was convinced it was a large, rough fan. And the last man, grasping the tail, argued that an elephant was exactly like a rope. Because each man was convinced that his own limited, partial experience was the whole and complete truth, they soon fell into a heated argument, unable to agree, each one defending his own small piece of reality. This is a powerful metaphor for our human condition. We move through life, grasping our own little sliver of experience, our personal feelings, our political opinions, our cultural upbringing, our fleeting successes and failures, and we mistake this tiny fragment for the whole truth of reality. We build our identity around this fragment and defend it fiercely, creating conflict with others who are clinging just as tightly to their own different fragment. Right view is the profound aspiration to do something different. It is the willingness to acknowledge that our personal view is limited and to open ourselves to seeing the whole elephant. It is the framework of understanding that allows all the other parts of the path to make sense. The first cornerstone of this wise framework is a clear understanding of karma, or karma. This word is often misunderstood in the West as a system of cosmic justice, a kind of divine scorekeeping, but its true meaning is far more simple, practical, and scientific. The word karma literally means action. The law of karma is simply the law of cause and effect applied to our ethical lives. It states that every intentional action we perform, with our body, with our speech, or with our mind, is a cause, and every cause has an effect. Wholesome, skillful actions, born from intentions of kindness, generosity, and clarity, will inevitably lead to wholesome, peaceful, and happy results for ourselves and others. Unwholesome, unskillful actions, born from intentions of greed, hatred, and confusion, will inevitably lead to painful, conflicted, and unhappy results. The crucial factor here is the intention, the will, the volition behind the act. It is the quality of our intention that plants the seed. This understanding is the ultimate antidote to helplessness. It frees us from the idea that we are merely victims of a random, chaotic universe or subject to the whims of an unpredictable fate. Right view shows us that we are the architects of our own lives. We are, in every moment, planting the seeds of our future happiness or our future suffering by the quality of our intentions. When this truth sinks in, we naturally become more careful, more mindful, and more responsible for our inner world, knowing that our present thoughts are creating our future reality. The second cornerstone of right view is seeing the world through the lens of the three marks of existence. These are three universal characteristics of all conditioned phenomena. They are the fundamental truths of what it means to be alive. The first mark is anicca, or impermanence. Nothing is static. Everything is in a state of constant flux. The stars in the sky, the mountains on the earth, the cells in our bodies, and the thoughts in our mind soul are subject to change. They arise, they exist for a time, and they pass away. Our ordinary view resists this truth. We crave permanence in a world that is fundamentally impermanent, and this resistance is a primary source of our suffering. Right view is the practice of seeing and accepting this universal flow. The second mark is dukkha, the truth of unsatisfactoriness we have already explored. When we see the impermanent nature of all things, we understand that they cannot provide lasting, ultimate satisfaction. Trying to find stable, permanent happiness in things that are constantly changing is, by definition, a stressful and futile endeavor. Right view is the wisdom to stop seeking refuge in things that can offer no real, lasting shelter. The third and most profound mark is anatta, or not self. This is the radical insight that within this constantly changing stream of experience, there is no fixed, solid, independent I or self to be found. What we conventionally call me, or myself, is, upon closer inspection, an impersonal, interdependent process, a flowing river of body, feelings, perceptions, intentions, and consciousness. These components are constantly arising and passing away, dependent on causes and conditions. There is no permanent, unchanging soul or ego at the center of it all, pulling the strings. This is not a denial that we exist. Rather, it is a denial of the way we think we exist as a separate, isolated, and permanent entity. Seeing through this deep-seated illusion of self is the key that unlocks the door to profound freedom. For if there is no solid self to defend, who is there to be threatened? If there is no separate self to gratify, who is there to be perpetually dissatisfied? It is vital to understand that right view is not a set of beliefs to be adopted on faith. That would simply be trading one limited view for another. It is a practice. It is a hypothesis to be tested against our own direct experience. The path does not say, believe in impermanence. It says, look at your own thoughts. Do they last? Look at your own body. Is it the same as it was 10 years ago? Investigate for yourself. Right view is the ongoing commitment to this investigation, to patiently observing our lives, to gradually seeing these truths not as intellectual concepts, but as living realities. It is a slow, unfolding process of clarification, a journey from believing to seeing. This then is the map. It is a view of reality that is based on the law of cause and effect and on the clear seeing of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and not self. It orients us, it gives our journey a direction, and it provides a framework that gives meaning to all our efforts. It replaces our confusion with a growing clarity, our fear with a growing confidence. And when our view of the world begins to clear, when we start to see things a little more as they truly are, it has an immediate and powerful effect on the motivations and desires that stir within our hearts. A clear view of the road ahead naturally informs the direction we choose to travel, and so the wisdom of right view gives birth to its beautiful counterpart, the second factor of the path, right intention. If right view is the map that shows us the landscape of reality, then right intention is the steering wheel in our hands. It is the moment of conscious choice, the setting of our inner compass. A map, no matter how accurate, is useless if we do not decide where we want to go. Effort, no matter how sincere, is wasted if it is pointed in the wrong direction. Right intention, or samasankappa, is the second factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, and it flows directly from right view. When our view begins to clear and we start to see the nature of suffering and its cause, a new kind of resolve can dawn in the heart. It is the resolve to turn away from that which causes harm and to turn toward that which brings peace. It is the conscious decision to align our life's purpose with the path to freedom. So what is an intention? It is more than just a passing thought. It is the thought that moves the mind. It is the why behind every what. It is the volition, the mental impulse that gives birth to our every significant word and action. Imagine your life as a great ship, and the vast unpredictable ocean is reality. Your intentions are the rudder of this ship. On the surface, the rudder may seem like a very small part of the vessel, but its subtle movements, made consciously and consistently, determine the ship's entire course. Left untended, the rudder will be knocked about by every random wave and current of habit and conditioning, and the ship will drift aimlessly at the mercy of the elements. But when the rudder is held with a firm, conscious, and skillful hand, the ship can navigate through any storm and arrive at its chosen destination. The practice of right intention is the art of learning to hold the rudder of our own mind. It is the shift from being a passenger on a drifting vessel to becoming its wise and compassionate captain. Most of our intentions are unconscious. They arise from deep patterns of conditioning, from our desire for pleasure, our fear of pain, our need for security. We want, we resist, we grasp, we push away all day long without ever really examining the driving force behind these urges. Right intention invites us to bring this whole process into the light of awareness. It asks us to look at the thoughts that fill our minds and to ask a simple question: where is this thought leading me? Towards greater peace, clarity, and kindness? Or towards greater agitation, confusion, and suffering? There is a beautiful story, often attributed to the Cherokee people, that illuminates this choice perfectly. An old grandfather is sitting by the fire with his young grandson. The mood is quiet and contemplative. The old man looks at the boy and says, "There is a great fight going on inside me. It is a terrible fight between two wolves." The grandson's eyes grow wide. One wolf, the grandfather continues, is a creature of darkness. He has anger, envy, resentment, jealousy, greed, self-pity, arrogance, and lies. He thrives on fear and creates conflict wherever he goes. He paused, letting the boy imagine this fearsome animal. The other wolf, he said, his voice softening, is a creature of light. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, generosity, truth, and compassion. He brings warmth and healing with his presence. The grandson sat in silence for a moment, picturing this epic battle raging inside his beloved grandfather. Finally, he looked up and asked, with all the earnestness a child can muster, "Grandfather, which wolf wins?" The old man looked into the boy's eyes and said quietly, "The one you feed." This story is the very essence of right intention. The two wolves live inside every one of us. Every day, every moment, we are presented with a choice. A coworker says something that annoys us. In that moment, we can choose to feed the wolf of resentment, replaying their words in our mind, building a case against them, nurturing our irritation. Or we can choose to feed the wolf of kindness, offering a silent wish for their well-being, recognizing that they too are likely struggling with their own battles. We can scroll through images of other people's lives and feed the wolf of envy and inadequacy. Or we can put the phone down and feed the wolf of gratitude by noticing the simple goodness that is already present in our own life. Right intention is the conscious, deliberate act of nourishing the thoughts, attitudes, and desires that lead to freedom and gently turning away from, gently starving, the ones that lead to suffering. The path outlines 3 specific kinds of wholesome food, 3 facets of the intention to feed the good wolf. The first of these is the intention of renunciation. The Pali word is nekama. This word can sound severe, even frightening to the Western ear. It conjures images of deprivation, of giving up all the pleasures of life and retreating to a barren existence. But this is a misunderstanding. For those of us living in the world, renunciation is not about renouncing life itself, but about renouncing the frantic, exhausting, clinging to things in the hope that they will provide a happiness they never can. It is the intention to let go. Our minds are conditioned to grasp. We grasp at pleasant sensations, we cling to possessions, we hold on to relationships, we are attached to our opinions and beliefs, all in a desperate attempt to find solid, stable ground in a world that is constantly flowing and changing. Imagine your mind as a hand. A mind that is clinging is like a tightly clenched fist, tense, rigid, and closed. A closed fist cannot receive anything new. It cannot hold anything gently. It cannot be open to the world. The intention of renunciation is the gentle, repeated resolve to open the fist. It is the intention to let go of the unwholesome patterns that cause us pain. It is renouncing the need to win every argument, letting go of the ego's demand to be right. It is renouncing the habit of seeking distraction from our discomfort, turning off the television to simply be with what is. It is renouncing the bitter comfort of a grudge, letting go of the past so that we can be free in the present. This is not an act of deprivation. It is an act of profound self-kindness. It is like a weary traveler who has been carrying a bag of heavy stones on his back for miles. Renunciation is the wisdom to finally put the bag down. How much lighter, how much freer the journey becomes. When we cultivate this intention, we discover a new kind of joy. It is the joy of simplicity. It is the contentment that arises when our happiness no longer depends on getting the next thing. It is the peace of a non-dependent heart. We trade the frantic, fleeting pleasure of the sugar high for the deep, abiding nourishment of a wholesome meal. We practice this intention by simply noticing the feeling of grasping when it arises in the mind. When a strong desire hooks us, we can learn to pause, to take a breath, and to recognize the feeling of tension. We can ask, what am I feeding right now? Am I looking for lasting peace in this fleeting object? The intention is not to violently suppress the desire, but simply to see it, to know it, and to gently incline the mind toward letting go, even just a little. The second facet of right intention is the intention of goodwill. The Pali word abhyapada literally means the absence of ill will. It is the conscious resolve to meet the world and its inhabitants, not with anger, resentment, hostility, or aversion, but with friendliness, kindness, and benevolence. It is the active choice to feed the wolf of love. Ill will is a powerful poison. We often think of anger as a weapon we can use to protect ourselves or to punish others. But it is a poison we drink ourselves, hoping the other person will be harmed. An ancient image describes anger as a hot coal that you pick up with the intention of throwing at someone else. Before it ever leaves your hand, you are the one who is burned. Anger clouds our judgment, agitates our body, and robs us of our peace. The intention of goodwill is the antidote. It is the firm decision to not pick up the hot coal. This is not a passive state of just not being angry. It is an active practice of cultivation. The primary method for developing this intention is the practice of metta, or loving-kindness meditation. This is the silent, heartfelt repetition of phrases of well-wishing. We begin with ourselves, for we cannot offer to others what we do not possess. We sit quietly and offer ourselves the words, "May I be safe, may I be healthy, may I be happy, may I live with ease." We repeat these phrases gently, allowing their meaning to soak into our heart. This can be difficult, as we are often our own harshest critics, but it is the most crucial first step. From there, we extend this intention outward. We bring to mind a dear friend or benefactor and offer them the same wishes. May you be safe, may you be healthy. Then we extend it to a neutral person, someone we see but have no strong feelings about. Then, when we are ready, we extend it to a difficult person, someone with whom we have conflict. This is not about condoning their harmful actions. It is about recognizing that they, too, are suffering, and that their harmful actions come from their own pain and confusion. It is the radical act of refusing to let their poison become our poison. Finally, we extend the intention of goodwill to all beings everywhere without exception. This practice, done regularly, literally rewires the habitual pathways of the brain. It weakens the neural networks of irritation and anger and strengthens those of kindness and connection. It is the steady, patient feeding of the good wolf until its howl of love drowns out the snarl of hatred. The third facet of right intention is the intention of harmlessness. The Pali word is avihimsa, a term made famous in the modern era by Mahatma Gandhi. This is the resolve to abstain from causing harm to any living being, including ourselves. If goodwill is the wish for others to be happy, harmlessness is the active intention to protect them and ourselves from suffering. It is the foundation of true compassion. Like the other intentions, this extends far beyond the obvious. It is not just about abstaining from physical violence. It is about the intention to avoid causing harm with our word stow, refrain from gossip that damages a reputation, from harsh criticism that wounds a heart, from dismissive comments that diminish another's worth. It is about the intention to avoid causing harm with our thought stow, release the mental habit of judging, condemning, and holding others in contempt. And in our modern, interconnected world, it is also the intention to consider the harm caused by our consumption, to be mindful of how our choices affect other beings and the planet that sustains us all. The intention of harmlessness is what gives rise to empathy. It asks us to pause and consider the impact of our choices. It invites us to step out of our own self-centered world and to feel with another. It is the felt recognition of our profound interconnectedness, the truth that the blind men could not see. It is the understanding that to harm another is, in a very real way, to harm ourselves, for we are all part of one body of life. When this intention of harmlessness encounters a being who is actively suffering, it blossoms into its active form, karuna, or compassion. Compassion is not pity. Pity looks down from above. Compassion meets another at eye level. It is the heart's tremor in the face of pain, the deep, visceral wish, may this being be free from suffering. It is the motivation that impels us to act, to offer help where we can, to provide comfort, to simply be present with another's pain without turning away. These three intentions of renunciation, of goodwill, and of harmlessness are the contours of a heart that is turning toward awakening. They are the rudder that steers our ship away from the rocky shores of greed, hatred, and delusion, and out into the open ocean of freedom. The practice can be very simple. It can begin each morning, before the day's activities pull us into their current. We can sit for just a few moments and silently set our course for the day. Today, may I intend to let go of my attachments. Today, may I intend to meet the world with kindness. Today, may I intend to cause no harm. This simple act of setting a conscious intention can change the entire flavor of a day. It becomes our inner compass, a constant, gentle reminder of the direction we have chosen. An intention, however, is an inner blueprint, a silent resolve. It shapes the heart and mind. But this inner transformation does not remain hidden for long. It naturally seeks expression. And the first, most powerful, and most immediate way our intentions manifest in the world is through the vibrations we send out, through the words we choose to speak. And so, the wisdom of our path leads us from the silent, formative world of our intentions to the audible, creative world of right speech. As our inner world begins to shift, guided by a clearer view and a kinder intention, the change inevitably seeks to express itself. The river of our wholesome resolve naturally flows outward, and its first and most constant expression is through our speech. We live in a world woven from words. They are the tools we use to build relationships, to share knowledge, to express love, and to create our societies. But we often forget that words are not mere sounds or symbols. They are actions. They possess a profound creative and destructive power. A single carelessly spoken word can wound a heart for a lifetime. A single thoughtfully chosen word can give someone the courage to persevere through their darkest hour. Our words create ripples that spread out into the world in ways we can never fully trace, and they create deep grooves in the landscape of our own minds. Yet, for most of us, this incredible power is wielded unconsciously. We speak out of habit, out of ego, out of a desire to fill an uncomfortable silence. We use words as weapons in moments of anger, or as tools to build ourselves up by subtly putting others down. Right speech, the third factor of the Noble Path, is the practice of reclaiming this power. It is the gentle, mindful training of transforming our speech from a source of conflict and confusion into an instrument of clarity, healing, and peace. The ancient teachings offer a beautiful framework for this practice, sometimes referred to as the four gates of right speech. Before a word is spoken, it can be passed through these gates for inspection. The first gate is the gate of truth. The practice of right speech begins with a commitment to be truthful, to abstain from false speech. This is more than simply avoiding blatant lies. It is a subtle and comprehensive practice. It means refraining from exaggeration, from embellishing stories to make ourselves seem more interesting or important. It means avoiding the small, so-called white lies we tell for social convenience, the deceptions that slowly erode the foundation of trust. It means being honest with ourselves, refusing to live in denial of uncomfortable truths. The psychological benefit of this practice is immense. When we commit to truthfulness, our lives become radically simplified. We no longer have to carry the heavy mental burden of remembering which version of a story we told to which person. A mind that is not entangled in deception becomes clear, straightforward, and calm. Speaking truth aligns us with reality, and living in alignment with reality is a source of profound strength and inner integrity. The second gate is the gate of unity. This is the practice of abstaining from divisive speech. It is the refusal to use our words to create walls between people. This includes refraining from slander, which is speaking untruths to damage another's reputation. But it also includes the much more common habit of gossip and backbiting. When we engage in gossip, we may feel a fleeting sense of superiority or a false sense of intimacy with the person we are speaking to. But this intimacy is built on the unstable ground of negativity. We are poisoning a relationship with a third person who is not there to defend themselves, and we are creating a climate of suspicion. The person listening to our gossip knows that when they are not around, we may just as easily be talking about them. The practice of right speech here is a conscious turning away from this habit. It is the intention to speak of the good qualities of others when they are not present. It is the choice to remain silent when we hear others being slandered. It is the active desire to use our words to foster harmony, to heal rifts, and to encourage reconciliation. It is the practice of building bridges of understanding rather than walls of separation. The third gate is the gate of kindness. This is the practice of abstaining from harsh speech. The obvious forms of harsh speech are easy to recognize: shouting, insulting, name-calling, cursing, but there are subtler and often more insidious forms as well. Sarcasm that has a hidden barb of contempt. Cynicism that belittles another's genuine enthusiasm. Condescending tones that imply superiority. Passive-aggressive comments that leave the listener feeling confused and hurt. These words are like small, sharp stones. They may not draw blood, but they leave bruises on the heart. The practice here is to cultivate gentle speech. It is the intention to speak to others and to ourselves with the same tenderness we would use to soothe a frightened child. This does not mean we can never speak of difficult things, but it means that when we must offer criticism or deliver painful news, we do so with the utmost care, with the clear intention to help, not to harm. We choose our words, our tone, and our timing with a compassionate awareness of their potential impact. The fourth and final gate is the gate of purpose. This is the practice of abstaining from idle chatter. Our modern world is filled with noise, and much of it is our own making. We engage in endless, frivolous conversation that serves no real purpose other than to fill empty space. We offer running commentary on trivialities. We speculate endlessly about things we know nothing about. We drain our own mental energy and that of others with a constant stream of purposeless talk. This does not mean we must be somber and serious at all times. Joyful, lighthearted conversation has a beautiful and necessary place in our lives. The key is the underlying intention. Is our speech serving to connect, to uplift, to clarify, or to learn? Or is it simply adding to the background noise of the world and the agitation of our own mind? The practice here is to become comfortable with noble silence. It is to learn that we do not have to voice every thought that passes through our head. We can learn to speak only when we have something of value to contribute. By doing so, we conserve our mental energy, and we find that when we do speak, our words carry more weight and meaning. There is a powerful story that illustrates the irreversible nature of our words. A man in a village felt great remorse for having spread a malicious rumor about the town's wise old sage. He went to the sage to confess and to ask for forgiveness. The sage listened patiently and then said, "You wish to atone? I have a task for you. Take a feather pillow, go to the highest point in the village, and on a windy day, cut it open with a knife. Shake it until every last feather has been carried away by the wind. The man, though puzzled, did exactly as he was told. He returned to the sage and said, "I have done it." "Good," said the sage. "Now for the second part of your task. Go back and gather every single one of those feathers and place it back inside the pillow." The man was aghast. "But master, that is impossible. The wind has carried them to every corner of the village and beyond. I can never get them all back." The old sage nodded sadly. "And so it is," he said, "with the words you have spoken. Once they leave your lips, they are carried on the winds to places you will never know, and they can cause a harm that you can never fully mend." This profound practice of right speech has one more crucial component, one that is often overlooked. It is the practice of deep listening. True communication is not a monologue. It is a dialogue. And a dialogue requires as much skill in receiving as it does in transmitting. Deep listening means offering our full, undivided, and non-judgmental attention to another person. It means setting aside our own agenda, our own need to reply, to correct, or to advise. It means listening with the sole intention of understanding the other person's world, their feelings, their perspective. In a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, the gift of our silent, focused presence is one of the most healing things we can offer. It is the other half of right speech. To practice right speech, then, is to become a conscious and compassionate artist of communication. It is to use the raw material of sound and silence to create beauty, harmony, and understanding in the world. As we apply these principles, not just in our spoken conversations, but in our emails, our text messages, and our engagement with social media, we find our own minds becoming more peaceful. The integrity we cultivate in our words must now extend to our physical presence in the world. The wholesome intentions of our heart, now finding expression through our healing speech, must also guide our every deed. And so, the path leads us onward, from what we say to what we do, to the practice of right action. Our journey along the path now brings us from the inner world of our intentions and the audible world of our speech into the solid, tangible world of our physical actions. Our body is the ultimate vehicle of our will. It is how we move through the world, how we interact with it, how our intentions become manifest reality. Right action and right livelihood are the practices of ensuring that this physical manifestation of our being is a source of safety, trust, and benefit for all, including ourselves. They are about weaving the thread of our deepest values into the very fabric of our daily deeds. Together with right speech, they form the unshakable foundation of sila, or ethical conduct, the ground upon which all deeper inner work must be built. Right action, or sammakamanta, asks us to look at our most fundamental behaviors. The traditional teaching presents this as an elegant framework of three core principles, three abstentions that create a container of safety around our lives. The first is to abstain from taking life. At its most literal level, this is a commitment not to intentionally kill any living being, from the smallest insect to a fellow human. But the spirit of this precept goes far deeper than a simple prohibition. It is the active cultivation of a profound reverence for life in all its forms. It is an invitation to see that every being, no matter how small or different from us, shares the same fundamental desire that we do, the desire to live and the desire to be free from pain. When we truly take this to heart, a natural gentleness begins to inform our actions. We become more careful, more considerate. We begin to see ourselves not as masters of the natural world, but as participants within it, connected to a vast and intricate web of existence. The second foundation of right action is to abstain from taking that which is not given. This is the practice of refraining from stealing. Again, the scope of this principle is far broader than just robbing a bank or shoplifting. It is the cultivation of a radical honesty and integrity in all our dealings. It means not cheating on our taxes, not padding an expense report, not taking credit for a colleague's work. It means respecting the property, the efforts, and the boundaries of others. On a subtler level, it means not taking advantage of another's generosity or exploiting their trust. This practice is a direct antidote to the poison of greed and the feeling of lack. When we live with this kind of integrity, we foster a mind of contentment. We learn to appreciate what we have rather than constantly grasping for what we don't. This creates a life of immense simplicity and peace, and earns us the most valuable currency in the world, the trust of others. The third foundation is to abstain from sexual misconduct. This principle guides us to bring mindfulness, kindness, and respect into one of the most powerful and intimate areas of human experience. It means refraining from any sexual act that causes harm to ourselves or to others. This includes avoiding any form of exploitation or coercion, honoring the commitments we have made to our partners, and being mindful not to treat another person as a mere object for our own gratification. It is about ensuring that our sexuality is an expression of genuine connection, mutual care, and affection, rather than a source of suffering, betrayal, or harm. When we bring this level of consciousness to our intimate lives, they cease to be an arena for egoic struggle and become a source of true, life-affirming connection. It is crucial to see that these three principles are not just a list of things not to do. Each one has a beautiful, positive counterpart. The intention to not take life blossoms into the active practice of protecting life and cultivating compassion. The intention to not take what is not given blossoms into the active practice of generosity, of giving freely of our time, our energy, and our resources. And the intention to avoid sexual harm blossoms into the active cultivation of deep, respectful, and truly loving relationships. This ethical framework then extends into the area where we spend the majority of our waking lives, our work. This is the practice of right livelihood, or sama ajiva. The path teaches that our work cannot be compartmentalized from our spiritual life. We cannot spend 8 hours a day engaged in activities that contradict our deepest values and then hope to find peace in an hour of meditation. Our work must be an extension of our practice. The traditional texts list 5 kinds of livelihood to be avoided: dealing in weapons, in living beings, including slavery or raising animals for slaughter, in meat processing, in poisons, and in intoxicants. The common thread is clear. These livelihoods are based on directly causing harm and suffering to others. For most of us living in the 21st century, the question is more nuanced. We may not be arms dealers, but we are part of a complex global economy. The practice of right livelihood today asks us to look with honesty and courage at the work we do. Does it, in some way, depend upon or promote greed in others? Does it thrive on exploiting people or harming the environment? Does it involve dishonesty or deception? These can be difficult questions with no easy answers. But the path does not demand immediate perfection. It asks for mindful inquiry. And even if we find ourselves in a job that is not ideal, or if changing our career is not a practical option, the practice of right livelihood can be cultivated right where we are. It becomes about how we work. Can we bring the principles of right action into our workplace? Can we be the person in the office who is known for their honesty? Can we treat our colleagues with kindness and respect rather than as competitors? Can we be generous with our knowledge and support? Can we refuse to participate in practices we know to be unethical? Can we perform our duties with a sense of service rather than just for a paycheck? In this way, any job can be transformed into a field for practice. We can make our work a place where we cultivate integrity, patience, and compassion, transforming our livelihood from a source of stress into a source of meaning. History gives us a powerful example of this kind of transformation on the grandest possible scale. In ancient India, there was a great emperor named Ashoka. In the early part of his reign, he was known as Ashoka the Fierce, a ruthless and brilliant military commander who waged a brutal war to conquer the neighboring kingdom of Kalinga. The war was a great success, but the cost was horrific. Over 100,000 people were killed, and many more were left homeless and starving. After the battle, Ashoka walked the battlefield and was overcome by the sheer scale of the suffering he had caused. The sight of the devastation broke his heart. He felt a profound and transformative remorse, and in that moment, he turned to the teachings of the Buddha. He completely changed his way of ruling. He renounced conquest by the sword and embraced what he called conquest by Dharma, or by righteousness. He, who had been a source of immense harm, dedicated the rest of his life and his vast imperial power to acts of benefit. He built hospitals for both people and animals. He planted shade trees along roads and dug wells for travelers. He encouraged religious tolerance. He inscribed his new vision of a compassionate society on great stone pillars throughout his empire for all to see. Emperor Ashoka's story is the ultimate testament to the power of right action and right livelihood. He demonstrates that no matter how much harm we may have caused in the past, it is always possible to change our course, to transform our very life's work into an instrument of peace. To live in this way, with our actions and our work fully aligned with our deepest values, is to build a life of profound integrity. It creates a sense of unshakable self-respect and inner peace that no amount of worldly success can buy. This stable, ethical life is the firm ground we need to undertake the deeper, more subtle work of training the mind. But to maintain such integrity, to speak truthfully and act kindly in a world that is often confusing and challenging, requires a special kind of energy. It requires diligence, persistence, and a wise application of our will. And this need for a wholesome and balanced energy leads us directly to the next factor of the path, where we move into the training of the mind itself, beginning with the practice of right effort. As we commit our lives to a path of ethical conduct, aligning our actions and our work with our deepest values, we quickly realize that this undertaking requires energy. To be patient when we feel irritated, to be generous when we feel scarcity, to be truthful when a lie would be easier, this is not a passive state. It requires a sustained, conscious application of our will. This brings us to the second great division of the Noble Path, the training in mental discipline, or samadhi. And the foundation of all mental training is learning how to work skillfully with our own energy. This is the practice of right effort, or samavayama. The word effort in English can be misleading. It often carries connotations of struggle, of stress, of white-knuckled striving against a powerful resistance. We picture an athlete grimacing with exertion, or a student forcing themselves to study through the night. This is not the kind of effort the path describes. The spirit of right effort is not one of tense force, but of joyful diligence. It is the steady, wise, and persevering application of energy. Think again of the musician and the lute. If the string is pulled too tight with violent, anxious effort, it will snap, leading to burnout and despair. If the string is left too loose, with lazy, lethargic indifference, it will produce no music and no progress will be made. Right effort is the art of finding and maintaining that perfect tensiona mind that is alert, vibrant, and engaged, yet also relaxed, patient, and joyful. It is the gentle work of a master craftsperson, not the brute force of a laborer. To guide us in this gentle work, the teachings offer a brilliantly practical framework known as the Four Great Efforts. This is a complete handbook for tending the most important garden we will ever cultivate, the garden of our own mind. The first of the four efforts is to prevent unwholesome states from arising. This is the work of wise prevention. A skillful gardener does not simply wait for weeds to appear and then spend all their time pulling them. They build a fence to keep out rabbits. They lay down mulch to prevent weed seeds from taking root in the first place. In the same way, we learn to guard the gates of our mind, which are our six senses. We practice the effort of being mindful of what we allow into our consciousness. We ask ourselves, what am I feeding my mind? The news I read, the television shows I watch, the social media I scroll through, the conversations I participate in, are they planting seeds of anxiety, anger, comparison, and greed? Or are they planting seeds of kindness, calm, and clarity? This doesn't mean we must live in a sterile bubble, cut off from the world. It means we become conscious consumers of sensory information. We make the proactive effort to protect the precious soil of our mind from unnecessary toxicity, creating an environment where wholesome states are more likely to flourish. The second effort is to abandon unwholesome states that have already arisen. Despite our best efforts to guard the senses, weeds will inevitably sprout. Such is the nature of a mind conditioned by years of habit. Thoughts of anger, jealousy, fear, doubt, and greed will arise. Our untrained reaction is usually one of two extremes. We either ignore the weed, pretending it isn't there, allowing it to grow stronger and silently choke the life from our wholesome plants, or we react with violence, hating the weed, trying to rip it out with force, which only churns up the soil and spreads its seeds even further. Right effort offers a middle way. It is the practice of mindfully acknowledging the presence of the unwholesome thought without judgment. We see it clearly. There is anger. We don't identify with it or condemn ourselves for it. We simply recognize it as an impersonal, conditioned event. Then, we skillfully apply an antidote. We gently remove the weed. If the mind is filled with anger, we can intentionally introduce a thought of loving kindness. If it is constricted by greed, we can contemplate generosity or impermanence. We learn to replace the unwholesome with the wholesome, not through force, but through gentle, intelligent substitution. The third great effort is to cultivate wholesome states that have not yet arisen. A garden is not just about the absence of weeds. It is about the presence of beautiful flowers, nourishing vegetables, and life-giving fruit. It is not enough to simply be free from anger or greed. The path is about actively cultivating their opposites. This is the joyful effort of planting the seeds of the good. It is the deliberate choice to set aside time to develop positive qualities. It is the practice of sitting in meditation to cultivate loving kindness for ourselves and others. It is the effort to read inspiring teachings, to reflect on the qualities of compassion and sympathetic joy, to contemplate gratitude for the good in our lives. This is the creative, generative aspect of the path. We are not just cleaning the mind, we are actively beautifying it, filling it with qualities that lead to our own well-being and the well-being of all those around us. The fourth and final effort is to maintain and perfect the wholesome states that have already arisen. When, through our practice, a moment of genuine peace arises, or a feeling of open-hearted kindness blossoms, the work is not yet done. A young seedling is vulnerable. It needs to be tended, watered, and given sunlight. In the same way, these precious, wholesome states need to be nurtured. This is the effort of savoring and sustaining the good. When a moment of clear mindfulness appears, we learn to rest in it, to appreciate it. When a feeling of gratitude warms our heart, we allow ourselves to dwell with it for a little longer. Each time we do this, we are strengthening the neural pathways of peace and kindness. We are helping the flowers in our garden to grow strong, deep roots, so they become resilient and ever-present aspects of our being. The quality of this fourfold effort is beautifully captured in the timeless fable of the tortoise and the hare. The hare is brilliant, fast, and full of powerful bursts of energy, but he is also arrogant, easily distracted, and inconsistent. His effort is spectacular but short-lived. He runs with incredible speed. Then, confident in his ability, he gets sidetracked and takes a nap. The tortoise, on the other hand, is slow, humble, and utterly unremarkable. But his defining quality is his persistence. His effort is not flashy, but it is steady, continuous, and unwavering. He takes one slow step, and then another, and then another. He never stops. The spiritual path is not a 100-yard dash. It is a marathon that lasts a lifetime. The dramatic bursts of the hare meditating intensely for a weekend retreat and then dropping the practice for months lead to very little. Right effort has the patient, humble, and indomitable quality of the tortoise. It is the steady, step-by-step application of gentle effort that over time carries us all the way to the finish line. In cultivating this tortoise-like persistence, we must be mindful to avoid the two great ditches on either side of the middle way. On one side is the ditch of laziness and lethargy. The Pali term is thina mita. This is the loose string. It is the heavy, dull mind that says, "This is too difficult, I'm too tired, I'll start tomorrow." It is a state of inertia that prevents any meaningful progress. The effort required here is the effort of generating energy, recollecting the preciousness of this human life, reflecting on the truth of impermanence, or remembering the profound peace that the path promises. On the other side is the ditch of restlessness and worry, or udaka kukucha. This is the tight string. This is the agitated, ambitious, striving mind that is obsessed with results. It is constantly judging itself. Am I doing this right? Why am I not feeling more peaceful? When will I get enlightened? This very striving for peace is what destroys peace. The effort required here is the effort of letting go, of relaxation, of trusting the process and accepting where we are right now. Right effort, then, is the wise and compassionate art of managing our own energy. It is the steady, joyful diligence of a gardener, tending the mind, protecting it, purifying it, cultivating it, and sustaining it. It is the balanced and persistent energy of the tortoise on his slow and certain journey home. But for this gardener to do their work, for them to know a weed from a flower, to know when to apply energy and when to relax, they need one crucial tool. They need clear sight. They need to be aware of what is happening in the garden of the mind from moment to moment. This absolute necessity for a clear, unbiased, and continuous awareness leads us directly to the very heart of the practice, the celebrated seventh factor of the path, right mindfulness. We have arrived at the very heart of the path, the central pillar of the training of the mind. We have explored the necessity of right effort, that wise and balanced energy that helps us to tend the garden of our mind. But a gardener, no matter how diligent, cannot do their work in the dark. To know which plants are weeds and which are flowers, to know when to water and when to let the soil rest, the gardener needs light. The light of the mind, the essential faculty that illuminates our inner world and makes skillful effort possible, is right mindfulness. This is the seventh factor of the path, known in Pali as samasati. To understand mindfulness, we must first honestly observe our normal state of being. Where is your mind right now? Your body is here, listening to these words. But is your mind fully here? Or is it drifting into the past, replaying a conversation from yesterday, savoring a pleasant memory, or chewing on an old regret? Perhaps it has drifted into the future, rehearsing an upcoming meeting, worrying about a bill that is due, or fantasizing about a vacation. This is the ordinary human condition. We spend most of our lives in a state of inner exile, our minds lost in the labyrinth of what was or what might be. We are rarely ever fully present for the only moment we ever truly have, the present moment. We live our lives on autopilot, driven by habits of thought we are not even aware of, missing the richness and reality of our own existence. Mindfulness is the gentle art of coming home. The word sati means to remember. It is the practice of remembering to return. It is the simple yet profound act of bringing our awareness back to what is happening right here, right now, without judgment. It is not about thinking about the present moment. It is about being with it, experiencing it directly. To practice this returning, we need an anchor. Our mind is like a small boat on a vast, restless ocean, constantly being pulled here and there by the currents of thought and emotion. We need a place to tie up, a steady point in the midst of all this movement. The most perfect and universally available anchor is our own breath. The breath is always with us, a faithful companion from the moment of our birth to the moment of our death. And the breath is always, unfailingly, in the present moment. You cannot take a breath that was in the past. You cannot take a breath that is in the future. To be aware of your breathing is to be here, now. The formal practice is beautifully simple. We find a comfortable posture, one that allows the body to be both relaxed and alert. We gently close our eyes and allow our attention to settle on the physical sensations of the breath. Perhaps we feel the gentle rise and fall of the abdomen, or perhaps we feel the subtle sensation of the air as it passes in and out of the nostrils. We don't try to change the breath, to control it, or to make it deeper. We simply allow it to be as it is, and we rest our awareness upon its natural, rhythmic dance. Inevitably, the mind will wander. A thought will arise. A sound will be heard. A memory will surface, and our boat will drift from its anchor. This is not a failure. It is simply what minds do. The real practice of mindfulness is in the moment we realize we have drifted. In that moment of seeing, my mind has been lost in thought. That very seeing is a moment of perfect mindfulness. And then, with the gentleness and kindness we would use to guide a lost child back home, we softly, patiently, escort our attention back to the anchor of the breath. We do this over and over and over again. Every return is a victory. Every return is a strengthening of the muscle of mindfulness. We are not trying to achieve a perfectly silent mind. We are training in the art of returning home. From this simple foundation of breath awareness, the practice expands to encompass our entire experience. The Buddha provided a comprehensive map for this exploration, known as the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The first is mindfulness of the body. This is where we begin, grounding our awareness in our physical reality. We are mindful of the breath. We become aware of our posture, knowing with a simple clarity, I am sitting or I am walking. We expand our awareness to include the vast landscape of sensations within the body, the feeling of warmth, of coolness, of tingling, of pressure, of tightness, of ease. This practice powerfully counteracts our tendency to live our lives as disembodied heads, lost in a world of abstract thought. The second foundation is mindfulness of feelings, or more accurately, of feeling tones. With every experience we have, there is an immediate pre-verbal flavor, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. We see something beautiful, and a pleasant feeling arises. We hear a harsh word, and an unpleasant feeling arises. Most of the time, we are on autopilot, unconsciously grasping at the pleasant and pushing away the unpleasant. This is the very root of craving. The practice here is to simply notice these feeling tones as they arise, without getting caught in the reaction. We note, pleasant feeling, and observe it without clinging. We note, unpleasant feeling, and observe it without aversion, watching as it too changes and passes away. The third foundation is mindfulness of mind, or consciousness itself. Here, we turn our awareness back onto the mind that is aware. We learn to see our mental states as objective phenomena. We note, the mind is feeling angry right now, or the mind is peaceful. We see that these states are not who I am. They are simply impersonal weather patterns passing through the vast sky of the mind. Anger, like a storm cloud, arises, lingers for a time, and then dissolves. Peace, like a patch of blue sky, appears and may also disappear. By seeing this, we stop identifying so strongly with our fleeting mental states, and we find a great freedom. The fourth foundation is mindfulness of dhammas, or mental objects. This is where awareness and wisdom come together. We learn to see our direct experience through the clarifying lens of the teachings. We watch as the hindrances, like restlessness or doubt, arise and pass. We observe the ever-changing nature of the 5 aggregates that we mistake for a solid self. We see the truth of impermanence in every passing thought. We see the 4 noble truths playing out in real time within our own hearts and minds. A helpful way to understand the role of mindfulness is to think of the mind as a great city and mindfulness as the wise gatekeeper. An untrained mind is like a city with its gates unguarded. Any travelerany thought or emotion can wander in and cause chaos. The anxious mind tries to solve this by slamming the gate shut, becoming a tense and paranoid fortress. But the mindful mind appoints a wise gatekeeper to sit calmly at the main gate. The gatekeeper does not block anyone, but simply watches with a quiet, knowing presence. He notes, a messenger of sadness is arriving. He notes, a merchant of joy is passing through. He notes, a spy of fear is trying to sneak in. By simply being aware of who is coming and going, without getting carried away on their errands, the gatekeeper ensures the peace and security of the entire city. Mindfulness is this wise, unflappable presence at the gate of our senses. Ultimately, the practice leaves the formal meditation cushion and infuses our entire life. The goal is to transform every activity into an opportunity to be present. When we are washing the dishes, We can feel the warmth of the water on our hands and see the iridescence of the soap bubbles. When we are drinking a cup of tea, we can feel the heat of the cup and truly taste the flavor. When we are walking, we can feel the sensation of our feet making contact with the earth. In this way, the most mundane moments of our lives become sacred. Our entire life becomes our monastery. Every moment becomes an opportunity to wake up. The ultimate gift of mindfulness is the creation of a space. It creates a precious, liberating gap between a stimulus and our habitual, unconscious reaction. A critical email arrives. Before the habitual knot of anxiety tightens in the stomach, mindfulness creates a space. In that space, we can see the email, we can feel the initial flicker of unease, and we can choose how to respond. We can choose to take a breath. We can choose to respond with clarity rather than fear. This space is the birthplace of freedom. It is the end of our slavery to habit, the beginning of a life lived with conscious choice and wisdom. As we learn to live in this space, as our mindful awareness becomes more stable and continuous, the scattered rays of our attention begin to gather into a single, coherent, and powerful beam. This natural calming and unification of the mind leads us from the broad, open awareness of mindfulness to the focused, penetrating power of the eighth and final factor of the path, right concentration. We have now arrived at the eighth and final factor of the Noble Path, the culmination of the training in mental discipline. We have learned to apply our energy wisely with right effort, and we have learned to see our present moment experience with the clear, unbiased light of right mindfulness. As this gentle effort and sustained mindfulness work together, they naturally give rise to a state of profound mental calm and unity. This is the practice of right concentration, or samma samadhi. If right mindfulness is the act of gathering all the scattered rays of sunlight that are our attention, then right concentration is the act of focusing those rays through a magnifying glass until they become a single, steady, and powerfully penetrating beam. To truly understand right concentration, it helps to see it as the natural result of the preceding steps. The two qualities, mindfulness and concentration, are like the two wings of a great bird. Both are needed to fly. Mindfulness is the expansive, open-hearted awareness that knows what is happening in our experience. It is the wing that provides lift and breadth, preventing our practice from becoming narrow and rigid. Concentration is the focused, collected, and stable quality of mind that arises from sustaining our mindfulness on a single object. It is the wing that provides power and direction, preventing our awareness from being scattered and weak. They are inseparable partners in the journey of liberation. Mindfulness recognizes the distractions, and concentration provides the stability to not be pulled away by them. There is a classic image that perfectly illustrates the nature and purpose of concentration. Imagine a beautiful lake high in the mountains. This lake represents your mind. On a calm day, its potential is to be perfectly clear, so clear that you can see the brilliant jewels and strange, beautiful plants that lie on its bottom, and so still that its surface can reflect the vastness of the sky and the surrounding peaks with perfect fidelity. But most of the time, the lake is not calm. The winds of the world, the demands, the pressures, the constant stream of sensory input whip its surface into a turbulent froth, and from within, our own unskillful actions throwing the stones of anger, greed, and worry into it keep the waters churned up. In this state, the mud and silt from the bottom are constantly stirred, making the water murky and opaque. We cannot see the treasures that lie within our own depths. We cannot even see our own reflection clearly. What we see is a distorted, fragmented, and anxious image. The practice of the path is the process of allowing this lake to settle. The practice of ethical conduct right speech, action, and livelihoodus, like building a protective wall around the lake, shielding it from the harshest winds of the external world. The practices of right effort and right mindfulness are like making the conscious decision to stop throwing stones into the water. We cease adding our own agitation to the mix. And when we do this, when the outer and inner disturbances are quieted, something miraculous begins to happen, all on its own. The heavy particles of mud and silt, the mental hindrances, begin to slowly, naturally settle to the bottom. No force is required. We simply create the conditions for stillness, and the settling happens as a natural consequence. This process of settling is samadhi, concentration, and as the water becomes progressively clearer and more still, we find we can see what was previously hidden. We can see the jewels of wisdom at the bottom, and we can finally see our own true face reflected perfectly on its surface. To understand concentration, then, is to understand the mud that clouds our mental waters. These are known as the 5 hindrances, the primary obstacles that prevent the mind from becoming clear and settled. The first hindrance is sensual desire. This is the mind being constantly pulled outward, chasing after a pleasant sight, a pleasant sound, a pleasant taste, a pleasant thought. It is the restless, wanting energy that says, "This isn't good enough. I need something else." It is a fundamental leaning away from the present moment toward a more pleasant future. The second hindrance is ill will. This is the energy of aversion, anger, resentment, and hatred. While desire pulls, ill will pushes away. It is the mind reacting to unpleasant experiences with tightness, resistance, and hostility. This creates a state of inner friction and agitation, like a constant, simmering boil that makes stillness impossible. The third hindrance is sloth and torpor. This is the opposite of agitation. It is a heavy, dull, and sleepy state of mind. It is a lack of energy, a mental fog that feels like wading through thick mud. The mind is sinking, unable to arouse the energy needed to stay present and alert. It is the loose, untuned string on the lute that can produce no music. The fourth hindrance is restlessness and worry. This is the classic monkey mind, jumping from one branch of thought to another without rest. It is the anxious mind filled with regrets about the past and anxieties about the future. It is a state of inner turmoil, like a whirlwind that never ceases, making it impossible for anything to settle. The fifth and final hindrance is skeptical doubt. This is the indecisive, wavering mind. It is the inner voice that whispers, "Is this practice really working? Am I capable of doing this? Maybe there's an easier way." This doubt undermines our resolve, it saps our energy, and it prevents us from ever committing fully to the practice, keeping us perpetually stuck. Right mindfulness, sustained by right effort, is the tool we use to work with these hindrances. Mindfulness sees them clearly when they arise. Effort applies the gentle antidote, and as we patiently work in this way, the hindrances begin to lose their power. The mud begins to settle. As the mind becomes progressively more unified and free from these hindrances, it can enter into states of profound meditative absorption, known as the jhanas. The jhanas are not mystical trances to be chased as an end in themselves. They are natural expressions of a deeply concentrated mind, signposts on the journey inward. In the first jhana, the mind is filled with a sense of rapture and happiness born of this newfound seclusion from its usual troubles. In the second jhana, the initial mental activity subsides, and the rapture and happiness become even more profound, born now from the very quality of concentration itself. In the third jhana, the more ecstatic quality of rapture fades, leaving a deep, abiding, and peaceful happiness infused with a powerful equanimity. And in the fourth jhana, even this sense of happiness subsides, leaving only a state of pure, unshakable equanimity and perfect, one-pointed awareness. The mind in this state is like a perfectly still candle flame in a windless room, absolutely steady, bright, and luminous. It is crucial to remember that as blissful and peaceful as these states are, they are not the final goal. They are still conditioned phenomena. The great danger here is attachment, clinging to these pleasant states and mistaking a beautiful resting place for the final destination. So we must ask the most important question: what is the purpose of developing such a powerful state of concentration? We do not still the waters of the lake just to admire our own reflection, however beautiful. We still the waters so that we can see to the very bottom. The profoundly calm, stable, and lucid mind is the ultimate scientific instrument for self-discovery. It is like a high-powered laser, free from all vibration, that can be used to illuminate the true nature of our own existence. With this powerful tool, we can now turn our attention back to our own experience, to our body and mind, and see the truths that we previously only understood intellectually. With a concentrated mind, we can see the truth of impermanence not as a theory, but as the constant flickering vibration of reality in every moment. We can see the truth of not self, not as a philosophical idea, but by directly observing that there is no I to be found inside the flow of sensations and thoughts. This is the practice of vipassana, or insight meditation. Concentration provides the stable platform, and insight is the liberating discovery made from that platform. While the deep states of jhana may feel like an advanced practice, the principle of concentration is essential for navigating the challenges of our modern life. Our attention is under constant assault. Notifications on our phones, the demand for multitasking, the endless streams of informational conspire to fragment our focus and create a state of continuous partial attention. In such a world, the simple act of doing one thing at a time becomes a radical act of sanity. The practice of consciously bringing our full, undivided attention to a single task, whether it is writing an email, listening to a child, or savoring a meal, is a direct application of right concentration. It reduces stress, enhances our effectiveness, and, most importantly, allows us to be fully present for our own lives. Right concentration, then, is the still point of the turning world. It is the culmination of the training in mental discipline, the beautiful and natural fruit that grows from a life rooted in ethical conduct and nurtured by mindful effort. It is the gathering of all our inner resources into a state of calm, powerful, and unified presence. We have now explored all 8 factors of the path, seeing how they form a complete and interconnected whole. The ethical life of Sila creates the outer peace necessary for the inner work. The mental discipline of Samadhi stills and sharpens the mind into a perfect tool. And this sharp, still mind is now perfectly poised to realize the profound, liberating wisdom of Panya. With our instrument tuned and our vision clear, we can now turn this powerful lens of concentration back onto the fundamental fabric of reality, to see not just as an idea, but as a direct, felt experience, the most undeniable truth of our existence, the constant, unstoppable, and universal river of change. With a mind that has been steadied, unified, and brightened through the practice of concentration, we are now prepared to turn our attention back to the fundamental nature of reality itself. We are no longer simply looking at a map. We are equipped with a powerful lens, capable of seeing the subtle, intricate landscape of our own experience with unprecedented clarity. We return to the great themes of right view, but this time our aim is not intellectual understanding, but direct, experiential insight. The first great gateway to this liberating wisdom, the most immediate and undeniable truth that reveals itself to a quiet mind, is the truth of anicca, or impermanence. On one level, we all know that things change. The seasons turn, technology advances, our own faces in the mirror show the slow march of time. We know this, and yet we live our lives in a state of profound denial. Our entire culture is a monument to the pursuit of permanence. We seek permanent security in our finances, permanent happiness in our relationships, permanent validation in our careers, and a permanent sense of self in our identity. We spend our lives trying to build solid ground in the middle of a flowing river, and we are surprised and hurt when the current inevitably sweeps our structures away. The practice of insight is not about learning the fact of impermanence, but about turning the focused beam of our attention onto it and seeing it, feeling it, and knowing it so deeply that we stop fighting against it. Let us begin with the most tangible thing we have, our own body. With a quiet mind, bring your awareness to the physical form you inhabit. Can you feel the subtle, constant movement of the breath, flowing in, flowing out, a rhythmic tide that has been with you since birth, but is never the same twice? Can you feel the sensations within the body, perhaps a warmth in your hands, a coolness on your skin, a slight itch on your arm, a feeling of pressure where your body meets the chair? Notice how none of these sensations are static. They arise, they shimmer for a moment, and they vanish, replaced by something new. This body you call yours is not a solid, fixed entity. It is a vibrant, dynamic process. Billions of cells are dying and being born in every moment. The food you ate yesterday is becoming you today. The you of this moment is physically different from the you of a moment ago. To see this is to see impermanence directly. It is not a thing, it is a river of ceaseless change. Now, let us turn this lens of awareness onto the mind itself. Observe the constant parade of feelings that move through your consciousness. One moment, a wave of simple joy may arise, perhaps from a pleasant memory or a sunbeam falling on the floor. Where did it come from? It appears, unbidden. And where does it go? A moment later, it has faded, perhaps replaced by a feeling of restlessness or a pang of sadness or a neutral state of simple boredom. We spend so much of our lives chasing the pleasant feelings and running from the unpleasant ones. But in the light of mindful awareness, we see that they are all like clouds passing through the vast sky of the mind. None of them are permanent residents. None of them are you. By learning to watch this parade of feelings with a calm and steady attention, we stop being their slave. We learn not to cling desperately to the pleasant cloud, knowing it will pass. And we learn not to fear the dark, stormy cloud, knowing that it too will pass, revealing the clear sky that was always there behind it. The same is true for our thoughts. Sit for even a minute and try to hold on to a single thought. It is like trying to catch the wind in a net. A thought appears, perhaps a plan for the afternoon, and before it is even fully formed, it is replaced by a line from a song, which is then replaced by a worry about a loved one, which is then replaced by a judgment about the thought itself. The mind is a waterfall of transient mental events. It is a constant, shimmering, and chaotic flow. To see this is to understand that we are not our thoughts. We are the awareness in which the thoughts appear and disappear. The profound truth of the path is this: suffering arises not from the fact of impermanence itself, but from our resistance to it. Change is not the problem. Our clinging to the idea of non-change is the problem. Imagine a person standing in the middle of a powerful, fast-flowing river. The river is the flow of life, Anika itself. The person who digs in their heels, who tries to build a dam of possessions, who grabs onto a rock of a fixed identity, will be in a constant state of struggle. They will be battered by the current, exhausted by the effort, and bruised by the debris that flows past. This struggle, this resistance, is dukkha. But the wise person, understanding the nature of the river, does something different. They let go. They relax into the flow. They learn to swim with the current, using its energy rather than fighting against it. In this surrender, they find a remarkable sense of freedom, buoyancy, and grace. They are carried along by life without the exhausting and painful struggle. The pain of resisting impermanence is captured nowhere more poignantly than in the story of Kisa Gotami. She was a young woman whose love for her first and only child was absolute. When the child fell ill and died, her mind could not accept it. Mad with grief, she picked up the small, lifeless body and wandered through her village, going from door to door, begging for a medicine that could restore her son. Some people mocked her, others turned away in pity, but no one could help. Finally, a kind person directed her to the Buddha. She approached the great teacher, laid her son at his feet, and pleaded for a cure. The Buddha looked at her with immense compassion and said, "There is only one medicine that can help. Go back into the village and bring me a single mustard seed from a house where no one and no child, no parent, no spouse, no Cervantes ever died." Filled with a surge of hope, Kisa Gotami rushed back to the village. She went to the first house and asked for a mustard seed. "Of course," the woman said, "but in this house, my husband died last year." She went to the next house. "You may have a seed," the man told her, "but we buried my father just last month." She went from house to house, and the story was the same everywhere. Every family had known loss. One had lost a daughter, another a mother, another a beloved servant. The refrain she heard over and over was, "The living are few, but the dead are many." As the day wore on, the truth began to dawn in her heart. Her unbearable personal grief began to dissolve into a vast, universal understanding. The loss of her child was not a unique punishment. It was the shared, inescapable truth of all life. Everything that is born must one day die. With this profound insight, her frantic clinging released, she was able to tenderly bury her child and return to the Buddha, not as a desperate mother, but as a woman who had woken up to the truth. To truly embrace impermanence is not to become morbid or nihilistic. It is a profoundly liberating act that brings with it incredible gifts. When we know that every moment is fleeting, the present moment becomes infinitely precious. We stop taking our lives for granted. The simple taste of a cup of tea, the sound of a friend's laughter, the feeling of the sun on our skin, these moments become sacred, precisely because they will never come again. This is the seed of true gratitude. Furthermore, when we understand that difficult experiences pain, sorrow, fear, anger are also impermanent, we lose our fear of them. We can meet hardship with greater patience and courage, knowing that this too shall pass. The storm will end, and the sun will shine again. And so, to see impermanence deeply with a clear and concentrated mind is to begin dismantling the very architecture of our suffering. It is to learn to dance with the ceaseless rhythm of life, rather than stand rigidly in its way. But this deep seeing of the river of change raises a profound and unsettling question. If everything, our body, our feelings, our thoughts, is an ever-changing flow, then who is it that is seeing this? What is this I that we feel is so solid, so continuous, so in charge? If my life is a river, where is the permanent, independent boatman who is steering it? This relentless investigation into the nature of the seer, the doer, and the thinker leads us directly to the next great mark of existence, the most subtle and liberating truth of all, the truth of not self. We have been standing on the bank of a great river, the river of impermanence, and we have watched as everything we once thought was solid has revealed itself to be part of this ceaseless flow. Our bodies are flowing, our feelings are flowing, our thoughts are a constant cascading waterfall. A mind that has been calmed and concentrated can see this with an unnerving clarity. And this clarity inevitably gives rise to the most profound and personal question we can ask: who am I? If everything is changing, where is the unchanging I that is experiencing all this change? If my life is a river, who is the boatman? For our entire lives, we have operated on a deeply ingrained, unspoken assumption that somewhere inside this body-mind complex, there is a central command center, a permanent and continuous self. We feel like a driver inside a vehicle, a ghost in the machine, a core essence that owns our thoughts, feels our feelings, and directs our actions. The third great mark of existence, the most subtle, challenging, and ultimately liberating of the Buddha's insights, asks us to turn the full power of our concentrated awareness onto this assumption and question it directly. This is the teaching of anatta, or not self. Before we proceed, it is vital that we approach this with great care. The English translation, no self, can sound terrifying. It can sound like a philosophy of nihilism, a declaration that we do not exist, that our lives are meaningless. This is absolutely not the case. A more accurate and helpful translation of anatta is not self. The teaching is not a denial of our existence. It is a profound correction of a fundamental misperception about the way in which we exist. It suggests that we are not a separate, solid, and permanent noun, but a dynamic, interconnected, and impermanent verb. The teaching of not self is not meant to annihilate you. It is meant to liberate you from a case of mistaken identity that has been the cause of all your deepest suffering. There is a famous encounter recorded in the ancient texts between a brilliant Buddhist sage named Nagasena and the powerful Greco-Bactrian king Melinda. The king, a man who delighted in philosophical debate, sought out the sage to challenge him on this very teaching. As the king arrived in his magnificent royal chariot, The humble sage saw a perfect opportunity for a lesson. After the initial greetings, Nagasena asked, "Your Majesty, you must be weary after your long journey. How did you arrive here?" The king replied, "I came by chariot, venerable sir." "Excellent," said Nagasena. "Then please, explain to me what this chariot is. Is it the wheels?" "No, venerable sir," the king replied. "Is it then the axle, the frame, the yoke that harnesses the horses, or the reins the driver holds?" To each question, the king had to reply, "No, venerable sir." Nagasena pressed on, "Is the chariot all of these parts put together in a heap?" "No," said the king. "Is the chariot something else, separate from all of these parts?" Again, the king had to say, "Number." With a gentle smile, Nagasena concluded, "Then, your Majesty, for all your searching, you cannot seem to find a chariot at all." Chariot is simply a designation, a convenient name, a conventional term we use when all these specific parts are assembled and functioning together in a specific way. In an ultimate, absolute sense, no separate, independent entity called chariot can be found. The king, being very intelligent, understood the point. Nagasena then immediately applied the lesson to himself. He said, "In just the same way, your Majesty, Nagasena is a convenient name, a designation for this collection of body, feelings, and thoughts. But if you search for a permanent, unchanging Nagasena that exists apart from these components, it cannot be found." This is the method of anatta. It is a process of deconstruction. The Buddha's own method for this deconstruction was to analyze the human being into 5 components, known as the 5 aggregates, or khandhas. He invites us to look at each one in turn and ask, is this me? Is this mine? Is this myself? The first aggregate is form. This is our physical body, with all its parts and processes. We have already seen that the body is impermanent. It is born, it grows, it ages, it gets sick, and it dies. It is a process, not a static thing. Furthermore, is it truly under our command? If this body were truly me or mine, we should be able to command it. Do not get old, do not get sick, be beautiful forever. But we cannot. It follows its own natural laws, regardless of our wishes. It gets hungry, it gets tired, it gets ill. Therefore, this body, so precious and so intimate, must be seen as not self. It is a temporary vehicle we inhabit, not our true identity. The second aggregate is feeling. This refers to the constant stream of feeling tones that arise whenever our senses make contact with the world. Every experience is tinged with a feeling of being pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Are these feelings our self? We can see clearly that they are not. They are fleeting, dependent on external contact, and utterly uncontrollable. One moment, a pleasant feeling from a sweet taste arises, and the next, it is gone. A moment later, an unpleasant feeling of a harsh sound arises, and it too passes away. These feelings are like fleeting visitors who come and go from the house of our senses. They are not the owner of the house. Therefore, feelings are not self. The third aggregate is perception. This is the faculty of the mind that recognizes, identifies, and labels our experience. It's the part that says blue, tree, car, sadness. Is this identifying process our self, number? Our perceptions are deeply conditioned by our past experiences, our language, our culture, and our moods. Two people can look at the exact same event and perceive it in completely different ways. Perception is not a pure window onto reality. It is a colored lens, and it too is constantly changing. Therefore, perception is not self. The fourth aggregate is mental formations. This is a very broad category that includes all of our volitional activities, our mental habits. It includes our thoughts, our ideas, our opinions, our beliefs, our biases, our intentions, our desires, and our fears. This is the aggregate we tend to identify with most strongly. We think, I am my thoughts, I am my beliefs, I am my personality. But when we look closely, we see that these too are impermanent and conditioned processes. Our opinions change with new information. Our habits can be retrained, our fears can be overcome. They are not a solid, unchanging core, but dynamic patterns of mental energy that flow and shift. Therefore, our mental formations are not C. The fifth and final aggregate is consciousness. This is the raw faculty of awareness itself, the simple knowing of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. Surely, this must be the self, the unchanging witness, the soul? The Buddha's most radical insight was to say, no, consciousness itself is a conditioned, dependent process. Eye consciousness arises dependent on two things, a functioning eye and a visible object. Ear consciousness arises dependent on an ear and a sound. It does not exist as a single monolithic entity. It is a series of discrete moments of knowing, arising, and passing away with lightning speed as our senses interact with the world. It too is part of the flow. It is not the unchanging boatman, but is itself part of the river. After such a relentless deconstruction, it is natural for a feeling of fear or disorientation to arise. If I am not my body, not my feelings, not my perceptions, not my thoughts, and not my consciousness, then what is left? Am I simply nothing? Here we must proceed with the greatest care, for the answer is the key to liberation. The teaching of anatta is a shift in perspective from seeing yourself as a noun to seeing yourself as a verb. You are not a static thing that has experiences. You are the dynamic, unfolding process of experiencing itself. There is seeing, but no separate seer. There is thinking, but no separate thinker. The self is not an entity that has a life. The self is the life itself, a flowing, interconnected pattern of events. When we see this, we can begin to appreciate the immense, crushing burden we have been carrying our entire lives. The burden of the ego, the separate self, is a tireless and anxious project. This I needs to be constantly defended. It feels offended by criticism, threatened by disagreement. This I needs to be constantly validated. It craves praise. It seeks attention. It compares itself to others, feeling either superior or inferior. This I feels fundamentally separate and alone, cut off from the rest of the universe. This I lives in terror of its own non-existence, its own death. This project of maintaining, defending, and gratifying the ego is the deep, hidden source of all our anxiety, insecurity, selfishness, loneliness, and fear. The insight into not self is the act of putting down this impossible burden. When the mind sees clearly that there is no separate, solid self to be defended, who is there to be offended? When there is no ego to be puffed up, who is there to feel pride or shame? When the illusion of separation dissolves, the feeling of loneliness gives way to a profound sense of interconnection with all of life. Compassion arises naturally, for we see that the other is not truly other, and the fear of death is transformed because the solid entity that we feared would be annihilated is seen to have been an illusion all along. What we thought was a solid stone statue that could be shattered is revealed to be a flowing fountain that simply changes its form. In the center of our being, we have spent our lives guarding a throne, believing that a great king, the self, sits upon it. The entire project of our life has been to serve and protect this king. The practice of insight is the courageous act of turning around and looking directly at the throne, only to discover that it has always been empty. This discovery is not a cause for despair. It is the ultimate liberation. The empty throne means the kingdom of our mind is not a tyranny ruled by a fearful ego. It is a spacious, open, and free republic, a peaceful kingdom that has room for all of life to arise and pass away without struggle. This profound deconstruction, however, leads to a crucial and practical question. If there is no central controller, no CEO in the head, no ghost in the machine, then how does anything work in an orderly fashion? Why do my actions have predictable consequences? What causes a thought of kindness to lead to a feeling of peace? What is the organizing principle that links all these selfless processes together into what appears to be a coherent individual? This question into the mechanics of a selfless existence leads us directly to one of the most sublime and comprehensive of all the Buddha's teachings, the intricate causal web that connects all phenomena, the law of dependent origination. After the profound deconstruction of the self, after seeing that the body, feelings, and thoughts are a flowing, selfless river, we are left standing before a great mystery. If there is no permanent, independent I in the driver's seat, then how does anything work? Why isn't reality just pure random chaos? What is the organizing principle that links one moment to the next, that ensures an action leads to a consequence, that a cause produces an effect? The answer to this is the Buddha's pivotal discovery, the teaching that he himself said was the most difficult to see and the most profound to understand. It is the operating system of reality, the universal law that governs all phenomena. It is called Padikasamuppada, or dependent origination. The principle can be stated with a beautiful rhythmic simplicity. When this is, that is. When this arises, that arises. When this is not, that is not. When this ceases, that ceases. Nothing, absolutely nothing exists in isolation. Everything that comes into being does so in dependence upon other factors. Everything is a co-creation, a confluence of causes and conditions. This teaching is the ultimate middle way of philosophy. It masterfully avoids the two great traps of human thought. It avoids the extreme of fatalism, the idea that everything is predetermined by the will of a god or a fixed destiny, leaving us with no agency. And it avoids the extreme of nihilism, the idea that everything is random chance, that our actions have no meaning, and that there is no moral consequence to our lives. Dependent origination shows us a reality that is both structured and free. We are free to act, and our actions become causes that shape our future. Yet, we are also subject to the conditions that we inherit and encounter. It is a dynamic, interactive, and deeply relational universe. To grasp this, let us consider a simple plant growing in a pot. We look at it and our minds apply the label plant. But where is the essential independent plantness? Is it in the seed? A seed kept in a dry box for 100 years is not a plant. Is it in the soil? A pot of soil is not a plant. Is it the water, the sunlight, the carbon dioxide in the air? None of these things by themselves is a plant. The phenomenon we call plant only arises, it only manifests when all of these conditions, the seed, soil, water, sun, and air come together in a specific, interdependent relationship. The plant is not a thing, but a process, a temporary event created by the coming together of countless other processes, and each of those conditions is itself dependently arisen. The soil is dependent on eons of geology. The water is dependent on the clouds. The sunlight is dependent on a star 93 million miles away. In this one simple plant, the entire cosmos is present and participating. It has no separate existence. Now, let us expand this principle to encompass all of reality. There is a magnificent and beautiful image from the Buddhist scriptures used to describe this interconnected nature of the universe. It is called Indra's net. Imagine a vast cosmic net that stretches out infinitely in all directions. At every single point where the threads of the net cross, there is a single, perfect, multifaceted jewel. The net has an infinite number of these jewels. And here is the magic of this celestial net. If you were to look closely at the polished surface of any one jewel, you would see reflected within it every single other jewel in the entire network. And within each of those reflections, you would see the reflections of all the other jewels, and so on, ad infinitum. This is a metaphor for the universe. Each jewel is a single being, a single event, a single atom. Each jewel has no essential nature of its own, but its existence is defined and made possible by its relationship to all the others. Its very identity is the reflection of the whole. You, sitting here right now, are one of these jewels. Your existence is dependent on the sun that warms the planet, the plants that produce the oxygen you breathe, the countless generations of ancestors who came before you, the language and culture that shaped your mind. The entire universe is reflected in the jewel of your being, and in turn, your every thought, your every word, your every action sends a vibration a subtle ripple throughout the entire infinite net. This is the truth of our radical interconnectedness. There is no such thing as a truly isolated event or a truly separate being. The Buddha applied this powerful principle of causality to unravel the mystery of human suffering itself. He saw that our inner experience of dukkha was not a random affliction or a divine punishment, but the end result of a chain of causes and conditions. In its simplest form, the logic unfolds like this. Because there is a fundamental misperception of reality, a blindness to these truths, this is ignorance. Because of this ignorance, there arises a tendency to grasp, and cling. These are mental formations. Because of this grasping tendency, our consciousness is drawn into the world in a state of division and wanting. This leads to craving for pleasant experiences and aversion to unpleasant ones. This craving leads to clinging and attachment. And this clinging to things that are impermanent, selfless, and dependently arisen is what ultimately manifests as all our sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair, the state of suffering. The profound hope in this diagnosis is that if suffering is a chain, it can be broken. We may not be able to stop the sun from shining or the rain from falling, but we can, through the practice of the path, cut the link of ignorance. We can stop feeding the fire of craving, and when a crucial link in the chain is broken, the entire process that leads to suffering collapses. This teaching is not just a high-minded philosophy. It has profound and urgent implications for how we live our lives together on this planet. If we are all truly interconnected, if we are all jewels in the same cosmic net, then the very idea of a purely selfish act is revealed to be a logical impossibility. An action that harms another person, a corporation that pollutes a river, a nation that wages a war. These actions are not just harming another. They are sending a poison, a discordant vibration throughout the entire net. The suffering caused to another jewel is ultimately reflected back in our own. Their poverty diminishes our richness. Their sorrow shadows our joy. Their degradation is our degradation. In the light of dependent origination, ethics and compassion are not just noble ideals. They are expressions of profound wisdom and pragmatic self-interest. The well-being of the one is seen to be utterly inseparable from the well-being of the whole. This understanding is the ultimate antidote to the pervasive modern feeling of loneliness and isolation. We may feel like a single, separate, vulnerable self, struggling alone against a vast and indifferent universe. But the reality is that we are never alone. We are intrinsically, unavoidably, and beautifully a part of this great, shimmering, interdependent symphony of being. We are a wave in the ocean of existence, distinct in our form for a moment, but never separate from the water. When this insight begins to move from the head to the heart, it changes us. The hard shell of the separate self, the me that is defined in opposition to them, begins to soften. The walls become porous. A sense of kinship with all of life starts to bloom. This felt sense of being part of one great, interconnected family is the fertile ground from which the most beautiful qualities of the heart can grow. It is the wisdom of the mind blossoming into the warmth of the heart. And this leads us directly to the cultivation of the four boundless states of being, beginning with the foundational practice of generating unconditional, universal friendliness, the practice of metta, or loving kindness. The journey of wisdom from seeing the selfless nature of our being to understanding the intricate, interconnected web of all existence is not merely an intellectual exercise. It is a revelation that, if truly seen with a clear and concentrated mind, cannot help but change the very fabric of our hearts. When the illusion of a separate, isolated self begins to dissolve, the feeling of me versus the world starts to lose its power. The walls we have built around our hearts become porous, and we begin to feel the truth of our radical connection to all of life. The natural, spontaneous response of a heart that is waking up to this reality is love, not the narrow, conditional, and possessive love we are often familiar with, but a boundless, unconditional, and courageous love. The teachings offer a systematic training to cultivate this boundless heart, a practice of developing four sublime states of being. We begin with the first two, the twin pillars of a truly compassionate life: metta, or loving, kindness, and karuna, or compassion. Metta is the foundation. The word is often translated as loving kindness, but it can also be thought of as a radical universal friendliness. It is the sincere and heartfelt wish for all beings, without exception, to be happy and to have the causes of happiness. Metta is like the sun. The sun does not choose who to shine upon. It does not offer its warmth only to the beautiful flowers and withhold it from the weeds. It does not shine only on the good and righteous and shun the evil and corrupt. It shines on everyone and everything, freely, generously, and without asking for anything in return. Metta is the practice of cultivating this same unconditional, radiant quality of warmth in our own hearts. It is a steady, quiet, and powerful force, free from the grasping and clinging of sentimental love. It is the simple, profound wish for well-being to pervade the world. This is not a state that we must simply wait to feel. It is a quality that can be intentionally developed through meditation. The practice is a gradual, systematic expansion of our circle of care. And the non-negotiable first step, the place where all true loving kindness must begin, is with ourselves. For many of us, this is the most difficult step of all. We are conditioned to be our own harshest critics, to focus on our flaws, to replay our mistakes, but we cannot offer water to others from a well that is dry. We cannot give a gift that we ourselves do not possess. So we must first learn to offer the sunshine of metta to our own being. The practice can be very simple. We sit in a quiet space and we silently repeat phrases of kindness directed at ourselves. Phrases such as, "May I be safe," "May I be healthy in body and mind," "May I be happy," "May I live with ease and well-being." We repeat them not as a mechanical mantra, but as a heartfelt offering, allowing the gentle intention behind the words to soak into our being. We are learning to become our own best friend. Once we have established a baseline of kindness for ourselves, we can begin to extend it outward. We next bring to mind a person for whom we feel natural, uncomplicated affectiona, dear friend, a beloved teacher, a benefactor. We hold their image in our mind and extend the same wishes to them. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with ease. We allow our heart to naturally radiate its warmth toward this person. Then, to stretch the muscle of the heart, we bring to mind a neutral person, someone we see often but have no strong feelings about, like a cashier at the grocery store or a person we pass on our daily walk. We offer them the same sincere wishes, training our heart to offer kindness beyond our circle of preference. The most transformative stage of the practice is to then bring to mind a difficult person, someone with whom we have conflict or for whom we feel resentment. This is not an invitation to condone their harmful actions or to force a false reconciliation. It is an act of profound self-healing. We recognize that holding on to anger and resentment is like drinking poison ourselves. We see that this person's harmful actions are almost certainly born from their own deep suffering, their own ignorance and pain. And so, with courage, we try to offer them the wish of well-being. May you be happy. In doing so, we are not freeing them. We are freeing ourselves from the prison of our own hatred. Finally, we expand the circle of metta to its fullest extent. We radiate this intention of loving kindness in all directions to our friends, our enemies, neutral people, humans, animals, beings in all realms, seen and unseen. We bathe the entire universe in this boundless, benevolent wish for all to be well. If metta is the heart's response to the potential for happiness in the world, then its twin, karuna, or compassion, is the heart's response when it encounters suffering. When we see another being in pain, whether physical or emotional, the compassionate heart feels a tremor. It is not a feeling of fear or aversion, but a deep and tender resonance with that being's pain, coupled with the active wish, may this being be free from this suffering. May their pain be eased. It is crucial to distinguish true compassion from its near enemy, pity. Pity creates distance. It looks down from a position of superiority and says, "Oh, that poor thing. I am so glad that is not me." Compassion closes the distance. It is built on the recognition of equality and shared vulnerability. It says, I feel this with you. Your suffering touches me. Far from being a weakness, compassion is a sign of immense inner strength. It is the courage of a brave heart, one that is strong enough to stay present with pain, its own and others, without being overwhelmed and without shutting down. And just like metta, compassion must begin with ourselves. When we are suffering, when we have made a mistake, when we are feeling lost or broken, our habitual tendency is often to meet our own pain with a second arrow of harsh self-judgment. Self-compassion is the practice of meeting our own suffering with a gentle and tender embrace. It is learning to speak to ourselves in our moments of failure with the same kindness and understanding we would offer to a beloved friend. The protective and transformative power of these boundless states is beautifully illustrated in a story from the Buddha's life. His jealous cousin, Devadatta, seeking to usurp him, arranged for a notoriously fierce elephant named Nalagiri to be intoxicated and released into the narrow lane where the Buddha was walking. Upon seeing the enraged beast charging towards them, the Buddha's followers panicked and fled for their lives. His loyal attendant Ananda, in an act of devotion, stood in front of the Buddha to shield him. The Buddha gently moved him aside and stood calmly, facing the charging elephant alone. He did not run, he did not show any fear. Instead, he radiated a powerful, silent, and unwavering field of pure metta, pure loving kindness, directly at the enraged animal. The story says that as the elephant entered this field of benevolent energy, its rage began to dissolve. It slowed its charge, its eyes grew soft, it lowered its great head, and it knelt respectfully at the Buddha's feet, completely pacified. This story illustrates a profound truth. Metta is not a weak or sentimental feeling. It is arguably the most powerful force in the universe, an invisible shield that can disarm the raging elephants of hatred, fear, and violence, both in the world around us and within our own hearts. To practice metta and karuna is to actively dissolve the illusion of a separate self. It is the wisdom of our interconnectedness made manifest as a lived emotional reality. When we can truly wish for the happiness of others and tremble at their suffering, the boundaries between self and other become beautifully and liberatingly blurred. But what of those moments when we witness the happiness and success of others? All too often, the untrained mind reacts with a subtle poison, the poison of jealousy and comparison. The cultivation of the boundless heart invites us to find the antidote, to learn how to rejoice in the good fortune of others as if it were our own. This leads us to the third of the four sublime states, the practice of mudita, or sympathetic joy. We have journeyed with the heart as it opens to the world, learning to meet all beings with the warmth of loving kindness and to meet their suffering with the brave tenderness of compassion. With metta, we offer the sincere wish for all to be happy. With karuna, we offer the sincere wish for all to be free from pain. But now we arrive at a more subtle and perhaps more challenging test for the heart. What is our response when our wish for another's happiness comes true? What do we feel when we witness the success, the good fortune, and the joy of others? For many of us, if we are truly honest, the first flicker of feeling is not always one of pure delight. A shadow can pass over the heart. It is the shadow of comparison, the chill of envy, the dull ache of inadequacy. This is the uninvited guest at the celebration of another's life, a poison that turns their joy into our private suffering. We live in a world that is a perfect breeding ground for this poison. Our social fabric is woven with the threads of competition, and our digital lives have become a curated gallery of triumphs. We scroll through an endless stream of images depicting other people's perfect vacations, their career promotions, their beautiful families, their creative successes. And with each image, the shadow can grow. We see their highlight reel and compare it to our own behind-the-scenes footage, a comparison we can never win. This gives rise to a particular kind of modern suffering, a low-grade, pervasive feeling of being left behind, of not being good enough, a bitter resentment that another's gain is somehow our loss. We must not condemn ourselves for this feeling. It is not a sign of a deep moral failing. It is the natural, conditioned response of the ego, the separate self, which lives in a self-created world of scarcity and competition. The ego believes that happiness is a limited resource, a pie with only so many slices. If someone else gets a large slice, that must mean there is less for me. The practice of the boundless heart invites us to see that this is a lie. It invites us to find the antidote to this poison of envy. This antidote is the third of the four sublime states. It is the practice of mudita, or sympathetic joy. Mudita is the capacity to feel genuine, selfless delight in the happiness and success of others. It is the open-hearted celebration of another's good fortune. It is the ability to feel happy for someone, without any thought of what their happiness means for us. It is a joy that is unselfish, appreciative, and generous. It is the direct opposite of envy. While envy contracts the heart and builds walls of separation, mudita expands the heart and dissolves those same walls. The seed of this beautiful quality exists in all of us. To see it, we need only look at the love of a parent for their child. Imagine a mother watching her toddler learn to walk. The child pulls herself up, wobbles unsteadily, takes a single, triumphant step, and then falls down. The mother doesn't feel envy. She doesn't think, "Why can't I walk with such charming clumsiness?" No, her heart floods with pure, unadulterated delight. The child's tiny victory is her victory. The child's joy is her joy. Her own happiness is magnified by witnessing the happiness of her child. This is the pure, natural state of mudita. The practice is to learn how to extend this same generous, celebratory spirit beyond our immediate family, to our friends, our neighbors, our colleagues, and eventually even to our rivals. Mudita is born from an understanding of abundance. It recognizes that happiness is not a limited commodity. Joy is not a zero-sum game. In fact, it is the one resource that multiplies when it is shared. The light from another person's candle does not diminish your own. It simply adds more light to the room. To feel joy at another's success is to step into that shared light, to participate in the abundance of happiness that is available in the world at every moment. It is the ego's scarcity mindset that keeps us trapped in the dark, jealously guarding our own small flame and feeling resentful of the light of others. To cultivate this quality effectively, it is helpful to understand not only its opposite, but also its counterfeit. The far enemy of mudita, its direct opposite, is clearly envy and jealousy. This is the state of bitterness, the feeling of resentment at another's good fortune. It is a painful, constricting state that isolates us in our own unhappiness. But there is also a near enemy, a state that looks like mudita, but is actually a subtle form of egoic attachment. This near enemy is a kind of giddy exuberance or vicarious excitement that is still rooted in self-interest. For example, a passionate sports fan might feel ecstatic joy when their team wins the championship. This feels like mudita, but it is conditional. Their happiness is dependent on their team winning, and they often feel animosity towards the losing team. Another example is a parent who feels immense pride in their child's academic success because it reflects well on them and fulfills their own ambitions. True mudita is purer and quieter than this. It is selfless. It is happy for the other person simply for their own sake, regardless of how it benefits us. It is the serene delight in another's well-being, a joy that is free and unconditional. Like the other boundless states, mudita can be cultivated through a dedicated formal practice and by bringing a mindful intention into our daily lives. In formal meditation, the practice is slightly different from metta. We do not begin with ourselves, as it can be difficult to rejoice in our own successes without the ego getting involved. Instead, we begin with a dear friend. We bring to mind a specific time they were happy or successful. Perhaps they got a job they wanted, recovered from an illness, or fell in love. We picture their joyful face, we feel the happy energy of that moment, and we intentionally allow our own heart to share in that feeling. We can use silent phrases to support this intention, such as, My friend, I am so happy for you. I rejoice in your good fortune. May your happiness and success continue. May your joy not fade. We let our own heart be gladdened by their gladness. After practicing with a friend, we can extend this to a neutral person. Perhaps we see a group of strangers laughing together on the street. Instead of simply ignoring them, we can take a moment to silently join their celebration. We can offer a simple wish. How wonderful to see such joy. May your happiness continue. This simple act trains the mind to notice and appreciate the happiness that is all around us. The most advanced stage of the practice is to try and extend this feeling of sympathetic joy to a difficult person or a rival. This is the ultimate antidote to jealousy. Can we find it in our heart to rejoice when someone we dislike gets a promotion or receives praise? This is incredibly difficult, and it requires a heart that is already well practiced in forgiveness and loving kindness. But even the sincere attempt to do so is a powerful act of liberation. It is the final severing of the chains of comparison and resentment that bind us to suffering. We can also bring this practice into our daily lives, especially into our relationship with technology. The next time you are on social media and you see a post that triggers a feeling of envy, use it as a mindfulness bell. First, just notice the feeling of envy itself. Acknowledge it without judgment. Ah, envy is here. Then, consciously see if you can make the shift. Look at the person's happy picture and try to say the phrases silently. I am happy that you are happy. May your joy continue. Turn a moment of potential suffering into a moment of active heart training. Furthermore, when a friend or colleague shares good news with you in person, practice active celebration. Don't just offer a quick congratulations. Engage with their joy. Ask them, that's wonderful. Tell me more about it. How did you feel when you found out? By showing genuine interest and delight, you not only cultivate mudita in your own heart, but you also deepen your connection with them, making them feel truly seen and celebrated. The fruits of this practice are immense. First, it gives us access to a virtually unlimited source of joy. Our own personal moments of success and triumph are relatively rare, but in a world of billions of beings, moments of happiness are happening all the time. A baby is being born, a student is graduating, a family is reuniting, someone is falling in love. If we can train our hearts to connect with and celebrate this vast ocean of happiness, our own potential for joy becomes boundless. We are no longer limited to the small pool of our own personal victories. Second, the practice of mudita is a powerful antidote to loneliness. Envy creates separation. It makes us feel isolated and resentful. Sympathetic joy does the opposite. It builds bridges of connection. It makes us feel like we are part of a community, a human family, where the success of one is a cause for celebration for all. It is the social glue of a compassionate world. Finally, every single act of selfless joy is a direct blow to the tyranny of the ego. The ego thrives on being special, on being better than others. Mudita, which celebrates the success of others as equal to our own, systematically dismantles this egoic structure. It is a direct, lived experience of the truths of not-self and interconnectedness. It is wisdom and love in perfect harmony. With metta, we wish for all beings to find the causes of happiness. With karuna, we wish for them to be free from the causes of suffering. With mudita, we rejoice when happiness actually arrives for them. But what happens when our wishes don't come true? What is our response when our efforts to help another fail? How do we relate to the person who continues to suffer despite our compassion? How do we remain steady when the joy we celebrate today turns into the sorrow of tomorrow? A heart that is only open, engaged, and empathetic can become exhausted and unbalanced by the endless, unpredictable waves of life. To complete its training, the boundless heart needs a quality of profound stability, a deep and unshakable peace that can hold all of life's joys and sorrows without being thrown off balance. This leads us to the fourth and final sublime state, the crowning glory of these heart practices, the practice of upekkha, or equanimity. We have now explored 3 of the 4 boundless states of the heart. the sublime emotions that radiate outward from a mind that understands its own interconnectedness. We have cultivated metta, the universal friendliness that wishes all beings to be happy. We have opened to karuna, the tender compassion that wishes all beings to be free from suffering. And we have practiced mudita, the selfless joy that celebrates the happiness and success of others. These three qualities are active, engaged, and relational. They are the heart reaching out to the world with warmth and care. But a heart that only reaches out, a heart that is only engaged in the endless drama of the world's joys and sorrows, can become exhausted. It can be thrown off balance. What happens when our loving kindness is met with hatred? What happens when our compassionate efforts fail to alleviate suffering? What happens when the joy we celebrate today turns into the loss of tomorrow? To be a true refuge for ourselves and others, the heart needs more than just warmth. It needs a foundation of unshakable stability. This is the fourth and crowning glory of the boundless states. It is the practice of upekkha, or equanimity. Equanimity is perhaps the most misunderstood of all these heart qualities. The word can suggest a state of cold indifference, of detached apathy, of simply not caring. This is its counterfeit, its near enemy. Indifference is born from fear and ignorance. It is the heart shutting down to protect itself from pain. It is a state of contraction and withdrawal. True upekkha is the very opposite. It is born from a heart that is so vast, so open, and so fearless that it can hold all of life's experiences without being disturbed. It is not a closing down, but a radical opening up. It is the fruit of profound wisdom and courage. Imagine the deep ocean. On the surface, great waves may rise and fall. Storms may rage, creating turbulence and chaos. But in the depths of the ocean, there is a profound stillness, an immense quiet pressure that is completely unmoved by the turmoil on the surface. Equanimity is this deep, oceanic quality of mind. Our lives are constantly being swept by what the teachings call the 8 worldly winds. They come in 4 pairs of opposites, and they are the forces that keep the surface of our minds in a state of constant agitation. The first pair is gain and loss. We feel elated when we get a promotion, a new possession, or a financial windfall. We feel devastated when we lose our job, misplace a valued object, or suffer a financial setback. The second pair is praise and blame. We feel a warm glow of pride when people compliment us, when they speak well of our work or our character. We feel the sting of shame and anger when we are criticized, judged, or unfairly accused. The third pair is fame and disrepute. We crave recognition. We want to have a good reputation, to be known and admired. We fear obscurity, being forgotten, or having our good name tarnished. The final pair is pleasure and pain. We are constantly seeking pleasant physical and mental sensations, and constantly trying to avoid unpleasant ones. The ordinary, untrained mind is like a leaf caught in these 8 winds, blown helplessly in one direction and then another. Our happiness is entirely dependent on these external, uncontrollable conditions. We are on a roller coaster, soaring with elation one moment, plunging into despair the next. It is an exhausting and precarious way to live. The mind cultivated in equanimity, however, is like a great ancient mountain. The winds of gain and loss, praise and blame still blow. The storms of fame and disrepute still rage around its slopes. But the mountain itself remains solid, stable, and profoundly unmoved. It is grounded in a reality that is deeper than the fleeting weather patterns of worldly fortune. Equanimity is this mountain-like stability of mind, a serenity that cannot be shaken by the vicissitudes of life. This unshakable quality does not come from sheer force of will or from suppressing our feelings. It arises from deep seeing, from the wisdom we have been cultivating all along this path. A mind with equanimity understands the law of karma. It recognizes that every being is the heir to their own actions. We can offer our love, our help, and our compassion, but we cannot ultimately control another person's journey. We cannot take away their karmic inheritance. This understanding allows us to care deeply and to help skillfully, but without the anxious attachment to a specific outcome. We do our best, and then we let go. respecting the mysterious unfolding of another's life. An equanimous mind is also one that has thoroughly penetrated the truth of anicca, or impermanence. It knows, with a deep, bone-marrow certainty, that pleasure is fleeting, but so is pain. Praise is temporary, but so is blame. Fame is a passing mist, and so is disrepute. When we see this clearly, we stop clinging so desperately to the pleasant experiences, and we stop resisting so fiercely the unpleasant ones. We can meet both with a balanced and peaceful heart, knowing that this too shall pass. Equanimity is the wisdom of radical acceptance. It is the clear seeing of what is within our control and what is not. We can control our own intentions. We can control our own speech and our own actions. We cannot control the results. The results depend on a vast, intricate web of causes and conditions that are far beyond our command. The practice of equanimity is the practice of focusing on the quality of our own efforts, and then relinquishing our attachment to the fruits of those efforts. There is a simple story that captures the essence of this unshakable peace. A wise sage was meditating by the side of a road when an angry farmer came storming up to him. The farmer began shouting insults, accusing the sage of being a lazy fake who was stealing from the hard-working people. The sage sat in silence, perfectly calm, simply receiving the man's anger without reacting. When the farmer had finally exhausted his rage, the sage looked at him kindly and asked, "My friend, if you prepare a gift for someone and that person does not accept your gift, to whom does the gift then belong?" The farmer, surprised, replied, "Well, it would belong to me, of course." The sage nodded and said, "And so it is with your anger. You have offered it to me, but I do not accept it." This is equanimity. It is the profound freedom that comes when our inner peace is no longer dependent on the praise or blame of the world. It is the understanding that we are not obligated to accept the negative gifts that others try to hand to us. Upekkha, then, is the serene and spacious heart that holds and balances the other three boundless states. Metta is the loving wish for a thirsty person to find water. Karuna is the compassionate action of helping them find it. Mudita is the joyful celebration when they finally drink. And Upekkha is the deep, wise peace that can accept the outcome even if they refuse to drink the water we offer. It is this balance that makes our compassion sustainable and our love truly wise. At this point on our journey, we have explored the entirety of the Noble Eightfold Path. We have built a foundation of ethical conduct, sila, to bring harmony to our outer lives. We have journeyed through the sublime heart practices of the four boundless states, and we have systematically trained the mind in mental discipline, samadhi, culminating in the unshakable peace of equanimity. And all of this has been guided by the clarifying light of wisdom, panya. We now possess a complete and profound toolkit for human flourishing, a set of inner resources for navigating the journey of life. The question now becomes a wonderfully practical one. How do we apply this ancient and powerful toolkit to the specific, concrete challenges and pressures of our modern world? Our journey now shifts from forging the tools to using them in the workshop of our daily experience, beginning with one of the most pervasive and powerful forces of our time, the relentless pursuit of materialism and the elusive promise of happiness through things. Having cultivated a mind that is stable, compassionate, and wise, we now possess a complete inner toolkit. The journey now turns toward applying this profound technology of the mind to the specific, powerful currents that shape our modern lives. We begin with one of the most pervasive and seductive forces in our world, the relentless culture of materialism and the promise of happiness through consumption. From the moment we are born, we are immersed in a sea of messages, thousands a day, all whispering the same subtle, powerful lie: you are not enough, you are incomplete, but the solution is at hand. It can be found in this new car, this advanced phone, this fashionable piece of clothing, this luxury vacation. Happiness, we are told, is something that can be acquired, purchased, and owned. This creates a chronic, low-grade fever of wanting a perpetual state of dissatisfaction with what we have and who we are. It is the thirst of tanha, weaponized and amplified into a global economic engine. And like the desperate person drinking salt water, we take a sip of consumerism, find a moment of fleeting relief, and are left thirstier than before, forever chasing a satisfaction that recedes as we approach it. To free ourselves, we must first see the mechanics of the trap. It is a cycle, a treadmill from which it seems there is no escape. The cycle begins with a manufactured feeling of lack, an advertisement, a perfectly curated image on social media, or a casual comment from a friend makes us suddenly aware of something we don't have. A desire is born. Our current life feels somehow deficient without this new thing. This feeling of lack is uncomfortable, so we are motivated to act. The second stage is the hunt. We research, we compare, we anticipate. The process of shopping itself provides a temporary sense of purpose, and the final act of clicking Buy Now or handing over a credit card delivers a small, satisfying hit of dopamine. Then comes the third stage, a brief period of pleasure. The new object arrives, and for a short time, it is exciting. It fulfills its promise. The feeling of lack is quieted, but this is the suffering of change, viparinama dukkha in action. The novelty inevitably fades. This is the fourth stage, habituation. The new exciting phone just becomes your phone. The new shirt becomes just another piece of clothing in the closet. The thrill is gone, and this leads directly to the final stage of the cycle. The original, underlying feeling of dissatisfaction returns, and the mind, conditioned by this entire process, immediately begins scanning the horizon for the next object, the next purchase that will finally solve the problem for good. We step back onto the treadmill, and the cycle begins anew. It is a perfect system for creating perpetual restlessness. The wisdom of the path offers a radical alternative. It suggests that true, lasting happiness is not found by adding more, but by appreciating what is already here. The antidote to the insatiable hunger of materialism is the profound and peaceful state of santu teti, or contentment. This is not a state of passive resignation or lazy complacency. It is not about giving up on our goals or ceasing to improve our lives. Contentment is an active, courageous, and deeply satisfying state of mind. It is the realization that our inner well-being does not have to be dependent on external conditions. We can still work towards a goal, but we do so from a place of fullness, not from a place of desperate need. The primary method for cultivating this inner wealth is the practice of gratitude. Gratitude is the intentional act of shifting our focus. The materialistic mind is trained to scan the world for what is missing. The contented mind is trained to see the abundance that is already present. It is a practice we can engage in at any moment. You can pause right now and bring to mind just one thing for which you are grateful. It does not have to be spectacular. The feeling of the air filling your lungs, the simple fact that your heart is beating, a faithful drum that has not missed a beat your entire life, the roof over your head, a single friendship that brings you warmth, a memory of a moment of simple joy. By consciously placing our attention on these things, we begin to retrain the mind. We teach it that our lives are not defined by what we lack, but are enriched by what we have. This practice, repeated over time, slowly starves the wolf of wanting and nourishes the wolf of appreciation. The difference between the wealth of things and the wealth of contentment is beautifully captured in a Zen story. A thief broke into the simple hut of a poor Zen master, but after searching everywhere, he found nothing of value to steal. The master, who had been meditating, saw the thief's frustration. "You have come a long way to visit me," he said kindly, "and you should not leave empty-handed. Please, take my robe as a gift." The bewildered thief took the old patched robe and disappeared into the night. The master then sat naked in the cool air of the doorway, gazing at the brilliant full moon. He thought to himself, "Poor fellow, I wish I could have given him this beautiful moon." The thief was obsessed with the kind of wealth that can be owned and stolen. He was so focused on finding a valuable object that he was completely blind to the priceless treasure that filled the humble hut, the silent beauty of the night. The master, on the other hand, possessed nothing, yet he was infinitely wealthy. His wealth was his capacity to appreciate the simple, ownerless beauty of the present moment. This is Santu Tedi. It is a wealth that can never be stolen, a satisfaction that never fades. This ancient wisdom finds a modern expression in the growing movement of minimalism. At its best, minimalism is not just a particular aesthetic of white walls and sparse furniture. It is a profound spiritual practice. It is the application of the intention of renunciation to our material lives. We begin to see that everything we own also owns a piece of us. Our possessions take up physical space in our homes, but more importantly, they take up mental space in our minds. We have to buy them, organize them, clean them, maintain them, insure them, and worry about them. They are a constant drain on our most precious, non-renewable resources: our time, our energy, and our attention. The practice of consciously letting go of unnecessary possessions is not an act of deprivation. It is an act of liberation. It is a declaration of freedom from the tyranny of things. By simplifying our material world, we create a spaciousness in our life space for our relationships, space for our creativity, space for our spiritual practice, space for the quiet joy of simply being. The great truth is that genuine wealth is not about having what you want, but about wanting what you have. The hunger for more is a fire that can never be quenched by adding more fuel. The only way to put it out is to withdraw the fuel of craving itself. This is done through the cultivation of gratitude for what is and the wisdom of simplicity, the recognition that the greatest treasures in life are not things at all. Having applied our toolkit to this great external pressure of materialism, we must now turn our awareness inward to face the burdens we carry that are far heavier than any physical possession. We turn from the clutter of our homes to the clutter of our hearts to face the ghosts of our own history, the heavy weight of regret, and the corrosive poison of resentment. The inner landscape we have cultivated a space of ethical integrity, compassionate connection, and quiet, stable awarenesses, now a place of refuge. From this refuge, we can begin to address the heaviest burdens we carry. We have looked at the external pressure of materialism, the desire for things. Now we must turn inward to the even more powerful burdens of our own history, the ghosts of our past that haunt the present moment. Our lives are often defined not by our present reality, but by our relationship to what has already happened. We are weighed down by two primary invisible burdens: regret, which is the anger we hold toward ourselves for things we have done, and resentment, which is the anger we hold toward others for things they have done to us. Both are chains that bind us to a time and place that no longer exists. The first crucial insight that the path offers us is a radical reframing of the past itself. The past is not a real place. It has no substance. It exists only in one form, as thoughts and feelings arising in the present moment. When we say we are haunted by the past, we are not being haunted by an external reality. We are being haunted by our own minds, by the way we are replaying and re-experiencing memories right here, right now. The problem is not what happened then. The problem is our relationship to it now. This is incredibly hopeful news. We cannot change the events of the past, but we can, with skill and compassion, change our relationship to the memories that arise in the present. We can learn to free ourselves from these chains. Let us begin with the heavy burden of regret. We all have moments in our past. We wish we could undo a harsh word spoken in anger, a cowardly action taken out of fear, an opportunity for kindness that we let pass by. The untrained mind takes these memories and turns them into a weapon against itself. It replays the scene over and over, each time adding another layer of shame, guilt, and self-recrimination. We become our own cruelest judge and jury, sentencing ourselves to a lifetime of inner punishment. This relentless self-flagellation does not help anyone. It does not mend the harm that was done, and it creates immense suffering for us in the present. The path of practice offers a different way, a path of healing rather than punishment. The first step is to meet the memory with mindfulness. When the thought of a past mistake arises, instead of immediately diving into the drama of the story or desperately trying to push it away, we pause. We take a breath, We simply acknowledge its presence as a mental event. We can note to ourselves, the memory of that time is arising. Then we can note the feeling that comes with it. The feeling of shame is here. The feeling of sadness is here. We watch it as we would watch a dark cloud in the sky. We are not the cloud. We are the spacious sky of awareness in which the cloud is appearing. This simple act of non-judgmental observation creates a space. It stops us from being completely consumed by the memory. We are no longer the prisoner of the story. We are the calm witness of it. The second step is to bring compassion to the experience. We must offer compassion first to ourselves, right now, for the pain of having to carry this memory. We can place a hand on our heart and offer a simple wish. This is painful. May I be gentle with myself in this moment. Then we can extend compassion back in time to the person we were when the mistake was made. We must remember that that person, the us's of the past, acted from the level of wisdom and clarity they possessed at that time. They were likely caught in their own ignorance, their own fear, their own pain. If they had known better, they would have done better. From our wiser perspective today, we can look back at that struggling person and offer them our understanding, not our condemnation. We can say to that past self, I see that you were suffering. I see your confusion. I offer you my kindness. This is not about excusing the harmful action. It is about having compassion for the suffering that was its cause. The third step is to transform the memory from a source of shame into a source of wisdom. We can ask ourselves, with genuine curiosity, what is the lesson here? What did this painful experience teach me? How can I use this memory to ensure that I act with greater kindness, integrity, and wisdom today? When we do this, the past is no longer a source of condemnation, but a valuable teacher. The mistake becomes a stepping stone on our path, not a permanent stain on our character. Finally, we can make the conscious intention to let go. We can recognize that continuing to punish ourselves helps no one. We can say to ourselves, I have learned from this. I have acknowledged the harm. I now give myself permission to release this burden and to live fully in the present. The other great burden of the past is resentment, the anger and bitterness we hold toward those who have harmed us. This is a subtle and powerful prison. When we hold a grudge, we may feel like we are punishing the other person, but we are actually chaining ourselves to them. We give them free rent in our minds, allowing them to hurt us again and again with every replay of the memory. Holding on to resentment is like drinking a cup of poison every day and waiting for the other person to die. The only person who suffers is ourself. The path to freedom from this prison is the practice of forgiveness. It is absolutely essential to understand what forgiveness is and what it is not. Forgiveness is not saying that what the other person did was okay. A harmful act is a harmful act. Forgiveness is not forgetting. The memory of the harm may always be there, and forgiveness does not necessarily mean you must reconcile with the person or allow them back into your life, especially if they remain a threat to your well-being. Forgiveness is none of these things. Forgiveness is a profound internal act of self-liberation. It is the decision to cut the chains that bind you to the person who hurt you. It is the choice to stop drinking the poison. It is something you do for your own heart, for your own peace, so that you can be free. The practice, like healing regret, begins with mindfulness and compassion for ourselves. We acknowledge the memory of the hurt and the reality of the pain it caused. We offer ourselves immense compassion for having had to endure it. Then, when we are ready, we can try to generate compassion for the person who harmed us. This can be extraordinarily difficult, but we can try to see that their harmful action must have come from a place of immense suffering within them. Happy, peaceful, and wise people do not go around causing harm. Only a person who is deeply caught in their own ignorance, fear, and pain would act in such a way. To see this is not to excuse them, but to begin to free ourselves from the grip of our hatred. The formal practice can involve using phrases silently in our own hearts. I have been carrying this burden of anger for too long. I see how it has poisoned my own heart. For the sake of my own peace, for the sake of my own freedom, I choose to let go. I offer you my forgiveness. This is not a one-time event, but a gradual process of softening and release. There is a beautiful teaching story that perfectly illustrates this entire process of letting go of the past. Two monks, one senior and one junior, were on a long journey. Their monastic rules were very strict, and one of the most important rules was that they were forbidden from touching a woman. As they came to a river, they saw that the current was strong, and a young woman was standing on the bank, afraid to cross. Without a word, the senior monk walked over to her, lifted her onto his shoulders, carried her across the raging river, and set her down gently on the other side. He then continued his journey. The junior monk was utterly scandalized. He was fuming with righteous indignation. For the next several hours, he walked behind his senior, his mind replaying the scene, building a case, rehearsing his angry speech. Finally, unable to contain himself any longer, he burst out, "Brother, how could you do that? You know we are forbidden to touch a woman. You have broken a sacred rule." The senior monk looked at him with a calm, gentle expression and replied, "Brother, I set that woman down by the bank of the river hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This is the central question for all of us. What are we still carrying? Which old regrets, which ancient resentments are we still holding on to long after the event has passed? To heal the past is not to erase it, but to learn how to set it down. Through mindfulness, we can see the memories without being consumed by them. Through compassion, we can soothe the pain of our own past mistakes. And through the profound wisdom of forgiveness, we can release ourselves from the prison of resentment. When we are no longer chained to the past, our energy and attention are freed up to live fully and vibrantly in the only time that is real, the present. Having made peace with the ghosts of what has been, we must now turn our clear and compassionate awareness to the great, universal anxiety about what is yet to come. We must learn how to face the inevitable realities of growing older, of sickness, and of the final great letting go that is death itself. Having learned to make peace with the past, releasing the burdens of regret and resentment, our path now leads us to face the future. And for every human being, the great unspoken territory of the future is shadowed by two inevitable realities: growing old and the final letting go of death. In our modern culture, which worships youth and denies endings, these are the ultimate taboos. We spend vast amounts of energy, time, and resources trying to fight them, to hide them, to pretend they will not happen to us. But this resistance, this war against reality, is a source of profound, underlying anxiety. It is a battle we are guaranteed to lose. The path of wisdom does not offer us a way to defeat aging and death. It offers something far more valuable, a way to meet them with grace, courage, and a depth of peace that can transform our greatest fear into our most powerful teacher. Let us first look at the process of aging. Our society often frames old age as a tragedia time of loss, decline, irrelevance, and decay. We see it as a problem to be managed, a slow fading into obscurity. The wisdom teachings, however, offer a radically different perspective. They see aging not as a decline, but as a potential ripening. It can be a time of harvest. In youth, our lives are driven by the fierce energies of ambition, desire, and the building of an identity in the world. In middle age, we are often consumed by the responsibilities of career and family. But as we enter the later stages of life, many of these external pressures begin to fall away. The fierce heat of ambition cools. The restless striving for more begins to quiet. And in this natural quieting, a precious space can open up. It is a space for reflection, for contemplation, for turning the gaze inward. The body may grow weaker, but the mind, if it has been cultivated, can reach its peak of clarity and wisdom. Old age provides the perfect conditions for deepening our practice. The truth of impermanence is no longer a philosophical concept. It is the undeniable reality of every waking day, felt in the aches of our joints and the changing face in the mirror. This provides a powerful, constant reminder to practice letting go. We learn to let go of physical abilities we once took for granted. We let go of the social roles that once defined you as a worker, as a parent of young children. We let go of attachments to our youthful appearance. Each of these small acts of letting go is a training for the final great release. Old age, when met with awareness, is not a waiting room for death, but a master class in the art of relinquishing. It is an opportunity to discover a source of joy and meaning that is not dependent on a strong body or a busy life, but on the simple, profound peace of a quiet mind. This leads us to the contemplation of death itself. The practice of mindfully reflecting on our own mortality is called Maranasati. To a culture that denies death, this can sound morbid, depressing, even frightening, but its purpose is the exact opposite. It is a practice designed to make us feel more alive, more grateful, and more awake than ever before. Its function is to strip away the trivialities of our lives and to focus our attention on what truly matters. When you know, with a deep and certain knowing, that your time here is finite and precious, you stop wasting it. You stop postponing joy. You stop holding on to petty grievances. You stop putting off the phone call to a loved one. The awareness of death is the ultimate catalyst for living a full and meaningful life. The practice can be very gentle. It can be as simple as resting with the awareness of the breath and recognizing the fragility of this life-giving process. This in-breath has happened, but the next out-breath is not guaranteed. This day has arrived, but tomorrow is not a promise. We can reflect on the simple fact that many people who were alive and well when they woke up this morning are no longer alive now. Today, in this moment, we still have this incredible gift of consciousness. How will we use it? This is not meant to create fear, but to awaken a sense of profound gratitude and wise urgency. It reorders our priorities. Suddenly, the argument we had yesterday seems insignificant. The desire for a newer car seems trivial. What becomes important are the things of the heart. To love more fully, to forgive more easily, to be more present, and to practice this path with a gentle diligence, knowing that we do not have forever. There is a beautiful image that captures this graceful acceptance of the life cycle. It is the image of an autumn leaf. In the spring and summer, the leaf is vibrant green, full of life, working tirelessly to absorb the sunlight, to breathe, to provide shade and nourishment for the tree. It fulfills its purpose completely. Then, as autumn comes, it does not cling to its greenness in fear. It participates in a final, glorious act of beauty, turning brilliant gold and red and orange. And when its time is done, it does not fight the wind. It does not grasp the branch in terror. It lets go. It dances down to the earth, gracefully, silently. Its death is not an ending. It is a transformation. It returns to the soil, becoming the mulch that will protect the roots and nourish the very tree that gave it life, ensuring the life of the leaves to come next spring. The leaf, in its silent wisdom, understands impermanence, not self, and the beautiful, selfless cycle of dependent origination. It understands how to live, and therefore, it knows how to let go. And now, after this long journey together, let us return to the image that began our exploration. The image of an elderly person sitting alone in a quiet, sunlit room. When we first saw this image, we may have projected our own fears onto it. We may have seen loneliness, boredom, a life that was over, a person simply waiting for the end. But now, with the eyes of the path, we can see something entirely different. Their stillness is not the emptiness of lack, but the fullness of presence. Their silence is not the ache of loneliness, but the deep, resonant peace of solitude. They are not staring into a void. They are resting in a vast, equanimous acceptance of life as it is. Their quiet room has become their meditation hall. Their aging body has become their most profound teacher of impermanence. Their memories of the past are no longer ghosts that haunt, but lessons that have ripened into wisdom. And their thoughts of the future are no longer a source of anxiety because they have made peace with the great, natural cycle of which they are a part. They are the autumn leaf, resting in the quiet glow of a life fully lived, ready to let go with grace. They embody the profound and peaceful truth that this path makes possible. By looking directly and wisely at the realities of aging and death, we rob them of their power to create fear. We transform them from terrifying specters into our most potent and compassionate teachers. We learn that every single moment of this life is a gift of incomprehensible preciousness. And we learn that the ultimate art of living is to learn how to hold our life with an open hand so that when the time comes, we can let it go with peace and without regret. This contemplation of our final letting go completes our exploration of the path's application to the great themes of a human life. We have traveled from the diagnosis of our dis-ease to the building of a complete toolkit for its cure. All that remains now is to gather the threads of this entire journey, to distill its essential message, and to see how we can carry its wisdom forward into every moment of the life that is still ours to live.